The basement, where nerdiness thrives, and grown men rant about toys.
What up, everybody?
What's up, basement dwellers? We're back in the basement, and it's weird that we're not talking Kevin Smith this time.
Yeah, we're back in the basement, and we're back with Ghostbusters.
Back to Ghostbusters.
5 years later?
Afterlife. I was almost
6 years later.
anticipating Jason Mewes to show back up as a ghost, because we've been stuck in the Kevin Smith retrospective for like such a long time that I was like, there has to be like something Jay and Silent Bob in this, but there wasn't. We're back to revisiting franchises that we left off with beforehand that we did retrospectives on, including Bill and Ted, which is also on our list.
Yeah, which had a sequel after we did the retrospective. But you mentioned you expected to see Jason Mewes pop up as a ghost. I expected Dante and fucking Becky.
Oh, true. Good point.
But no, they got busted. They're in the trap. They're gone.
They're in the containment unit already. They're back at the firehouse that, even though Dan said it was a Starbucks, it turns out not.
Thank you! That is in my notes.
Right off the bat, I want to point that out, that it's like, come on.
There's a point in this movie, y'all, when you first see Ray Stantz, and he mentions how things went down, and he says they lost the firehouse and that it is now a Starbucks. Well, there is two post-credit scenes, and on the final one, you have Winston talking about basically dropping hints he's going to reopen the thing. Well, then he walks into the firehouse, the rundown firehouse. The rundown ass firehouse. Number one, if this was a Starbucks, where did the Starbucks go? Number two, how is the firehouse still there? Run the fuck down. That's just annoying.
Yeah. Well, because somebody had to have pointed out, like, Dan Aykroyd more than likely improvised the Starbucks thing, and they probably all laughed on set, and it probably clouded, like, no script supervisor was like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah, like somebody should have fixed something really quick.
And the thing with Winston was probably one of the first things to be filmed, honestly. Like, they probably filmed that back, like, shortly after the 2016 one.
Yeah, that probably could have been like a proof of concept or something.
It really feels like one of those teaser trailers, like in the early 2000s, like when they tried to do that, like, Mortal Kombat movie that became the Legacy miniseries, and they had Michael Jai White as Jax. It started as, like, this trailer in 2011, like,
yeah.
What if Kombat was like the Dark Knight or something like that? Like, that's what it feels like. Like, you could have just uploaded the short with Janine and Ernie Hudson.
Huh. Yeah, that's feels like that could have been a Super Bowl commercial.
Oh my God, there are things in here that feel like they could have been SNL sketches, Super Bowl commercials, more so towards the end of the movie. Like, this is the first time I've watched the movie since the movie theater, and unlike the 2016 movie, where I was very vocal, like, on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page, just, like, about how I was feeling about it, it's like, this kind of came and went, and I was pretty silent, just because I didn't really know what to do with this one. Like, I know I didn't hate it when I saw it, but, like, I just kind of felt like something was off. Also, just in the slew of nostalgic movies coming out, there just comes to a point where you're just kind of fatigued, your eyes kind of gloss over, and you just kind of are like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm getting. But my second time around was a lot more, I would say, positive watching it. Like, I enjoyed what I watched, but I have more so just, like, nitpicks and suggestions on just how it could have been tighter. There's just a lot of loose ends and, like, just offhand things in this movie that really bog it down, I would say.
Yeah. So before, like always, before we get into the review, where we ask everybody, hey, what are your thoughts? We're reviewing this movie, and some of you have, you might have some different comments than I have. But
yeah, I'm looking at the basement, the fresh from the Facebook group. And if I want to kick it off, I see a comment from Mike Benbow, who's a good buddy of mine. And he said, it definitely over-delivered for me. I went in with low expectations and was very pleasantly surprised. I dug the story, the throwbacks. We all saw the twist, in quotes, a mile away. But it was still done well, in my opinion. I would say I dug aspects of the story, and some of the throwbacks were cool, but some were really, like, unnecessary. Like, stuff that even me, as, like, a super big Ghostbusters nerd, I wouldn't have even thought to put in as fan service. So over-delivered for sure in certain aspects, under-delivered in others in terms of, like, a Ghostbusters movie set in a small town.
yeah, I'll say there was a couple things I do believe were under-delivered. Maybe one big thing I believe is under-delivered, but we'll get to that when I get in my notes. I'll read this one. This one is really funny. Zach Jones, my brother here, Zach's is hilarious because I remember him saying all this when the movie came out. Zach says, saw it once. I was bored out of my mind. I feel like they totally mishandled Egon, making him an absent father who abandoned his family and friends to chase ghosts on his own. And the OG Busters come in at the last 5 minutes for a cameo. And don't get me started on CGI Harold Ramis. Ghost. Oh my god, just wow. The Baby Buster were annoying as hell. Fat kid who does podcast, name is podcast. Egon's granddaughter was so annoying, always pushing her glasses up in every scene. I saw her do it a few times, but I'm not gonna lie, dude. You gotta push your glasses up. Yeah, I wear safety glasses all day at work, and I'm constantly, nerdily pushing my glasses back up.
That's why I responded to him. I was like, I pushed my glasses up just reading this post. Like, it happens. But I can't say I disagree. That's also what I said, where, well, there actually is some points once we get into the notes that I found myself disagreeing with. But overall, I get the reaction, because this was kind of the back and forth I was having in my head for the first time as well. 100% I agree with the podcast kid's name is podcast. Like,
yeah, that's dumb.
Really makes what would have been a harmless character, like, down many pegs.
Yeah, that was dumb. And then the fact that he gave himself that nickname. He says, I call myself Podcast because I do podcasts. Like, you gave yourself that nickname? Like,
truth be told, kids do give themselves some pretty stupid, like, and they do stuff like that, but,
yeah.
We'll get more into that.
So, what else do you have?
Anthony Mormile?
Yeah, an old buddy of mine and Zach's from way back in the day, like back in like 1999.
All right, so their friendship is as long as my lifespan, so we're awesome. We're good here. He says, most of the movies and TV shows suck nowadays because they're only focused on diversity, equality, and inclusion with their writers and staff at the expense of talent and skill.
And go ahead.
That is an interesting talking point.
Yeah, which has nothing to do with this, because I wouldn't say that this movie suffers from any sort of forced diversity, as people say. This movie just...
No, nothing felt really forced in this one per se, and I personally don't have a problem with it as long as, like, yeah, you don't kind of see the writer's room at work. You know what I mean?
And even the line, I did like this line when another stupid name, her name is Lucky,
That was her name. Yeah, I just, no offense to the actress, like her name in my notes was just girl.
But she makes the line when they first go in the mine and they say something like, Gozer is neither he nor she, and she says, pretty woke for like 3000 BC or something, and I was like, that was pretty cute.
She goes like, whoa, progressive, and I was like, yeah, that is a pretty funny line. And then there was another one where Podcast was talking to Phoebe, and she's like, they're talking about the conspiracy theories, and he's like, where'd you think the pyramids come from? And Phoebe's like, slaves.
Yeah.
That's a pretty dark joke for a movie that's really going for more whimsy over dry humor. You know what I mean? That's a big talking point in my notes that we'll get to. But just shout out to that they did get away with some pretty dark jokes, and nothing in that regard.
Yeah, nothing like overly dark, but kind of like, I see what you're doing.
More so than I would expect a modern movie of a big franchise to go for, and such a quick joke too. So
yeah. But yeah, more Miles' little comment here. I can't necessarily disagree with him, but it's also a topic that I am not ready to get into. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to talk about that, and that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Exactly. If we were to put it all on a metric, it would just be like a podcast or a video essay of its own, which people probably have already made or more
exactly.
well equipped.
Which is stuff I don't really do, you know.
It's not that I don't care. It's like I'm probably not the mind you want to like poke at for like the hot topics. You know, I'm here to talk about this shit. I'm here to talk about proton packs.
Yeah, we're here to fucking talk about ghosts and children
and gozers and zools.
Yes,
and
only Zool. There is no diversity, only Zool.
There you go. And that is the answer to that question.
Then on, I believe this was on the Cut to the Chase podcast, Lacey Lou says, needed more Ghostbusters. That moment at the end was really heartfelt, and no, you can never go wrong with my man Paul Rudd. Thankfully, he was doing this, so he couldn't be in that shit show that was Halloween Kills to reprise Tommy Doyle.
With fair. That is a fair point.
Yeah.
I agree with the Paul Rudd thing for sure. And one thing I just love about Lacey's takes on movies is the positivity.
Yeah.
Most of the internet, like, is sold on let's tear a movie apart, let's do this, let's do that. Like, with the criticism, like, going deep into pointing out everything that's wrong. Her takeaways are always like, I appreciated this was really cool, and even with something she didn't enjoy, there's always, like, I don't know, an upbeat energy to it that's just, I dig it. So, this post really went a long way for me because I'm 100% in the Paul Rudd camp. I was surprised when I saw the trailer, because I had made a YouTube video way back in the day. It's probably like 6 years ago, probably, so that feels long for me, where I did like a version of like, what if there was a new Ghostbusters team? And Paul Rudd was definitely one of those comedic actor choices where I feel like an Ivan Reitman-esque comedy would have really been up his alley. I didn't expect them to put him in the role that they put him in.
Yeah, I would have expected him to be a silly Buster or like a brand new Buster, as opposed to new dad, silly new dad.
Well, he kind of fills in the Rick Moranis role, which is just not what.
Yeah, there you go.
See from a Paul Rudd Ghostbuster, I would have personally loved to see them put on the pack.
And that does make a little sense. It's just not as nerdy. And then a David Mannion says, I watched half of this and really liked it, but something came up and I forgot to get back to it and finish it. So I really need to watch it from the beginning and finish. And
I guess it does kind of have that quality when you're not in the theater, because like that happened to me today. Like I had to wrap it up today, and since since you were watching it today, I was like, fuck, might as well go back to the beginning and really round out my notes. But I do feel like the pacing at times could have that effect on you, where you can kind of look at your clock or just, Also, people are just busy.
Yeah, the movie is 2 hours. 2 hours and 4 minutes. So throw in, let's roughly say 10, 15-ish minutes of credits. This is a long movie that, for me, I'm not going to lie, I didn't necessarily feel the length. I thought the pacing was fairly decent.
I would say it's kind of up and down for me. There are times where it feels like it's moving really fast, and then there are other times I was like, fuck, we just got to Dan Aykroyd and we're an hour in.
Yeah.
And we still have an hour left.
Yeah. So, right before we get into the review, there's a thing I want to say, that this movie, it does two things that are part of there are a few Hollywood trends right now, and this thing is doing two of them. Number one would be the Legacy sequel. Let's bring a sequel back roughly 30 years later with some original cast members. Characters have links to the original characters, a lot of fan service, and a lot of going back to the first movie. And then the other movie, and even TV series trend this movie does is the, you would call it Stranger Things syndrome, where you have young kids fighting either monsters or supernatural creatures, and most of the adult world is oblivious to it. Back in the day, that was a big thing with movies like E.T., Monster Squad, Goonies, and even in the 90s with Hocus Pocus. Then it kind of went away for a while, and a lot of people attribute Stranger Things for bringing this style of story back, but really, it was the first Goosebumps movie that sort of brought this format back, and maybe Stranger Things made it popular again, and then everybody wanted to do it. But if you even want to go back a little further, you could say that J.J. Abrams' Super 8 did it first, and then, but that came with little fanfare, and nobody remembers it.
Nobody remembers that one, and it is kind of proto Stranger Things, where it's Diet Spielberg.
Yeah.
And another thing, too, is it's trying to tap, especially Stranger Things, it's trying to tap into a very specific vibe that 80s films kind of gave. It's trying to bring back, even the way that first season is shot, which I really love. There's even, a grit on the camera that's trying to make it hit that certain sweet spot of 80s nostalgia while still trying to do something new.
Yeah.
They say that what is it, to be retro, it's every 20 or 30 years?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Stranger Things gave the 80s nostalgia an extra decades boost, where you're right, it kind of the 80s nostalgia, you could say, was kind of, or just retro nostalgia, can go all the way back to the early 2010s, stuff like Scott Pilgrim, where just even using video game sound effects and stuff like that was already being deemed retro. And then Stranger Things really sparked what you're pointing out when it comes to mainstream movies and bringing back these franchises.
Yeah, and I
was inspired by these franchises, and it somehow was the resurrection spell that brought them all back from the dead.
Yeah. And I was trying to make a list of movies and shows that are and have done this, but then I drew a blank. It blew me away. But obviously this Ghostbusters is doing that. It did it, which also weirdly enough features Finn Wolfhard, who is in this, and Stranger Things. And then there's the other series, Lock and Key, which probably is my favorite out of all of this kids fighting monsters shit. I think Lock and Key was pretty damn phenomenal.
Stephen King link.
Yeah, another Stephen King link, and actually an explanation on why the adults are oblivious to the shit going on, which I kind of actually thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, I need to check out Lock and Key. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I think Force Awakens is definitely another good example in how this movie came to be. Without Force Awakens, I don't think this movie would have existed.
Like Force Awakens definitely brought the whole legacy sequel thing and made it popular as shit. Like it did for legacy sequels that Stranger Things did for the kids fighting monsters.
Because it truly was a legacy sequel. Like, some people call it a soft reboot, which it is in certain ways, but it really isn't. Like, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies are soft reboots, because even though you have old-ass Spock, it's technically its own universe, and it's starting... Like, it's not really a legacy sequel.
Yeah, because both there's two separate timelines, whereas legacy sequel continues the original continuity.
Yeah, so if there was like a rule set to like how we categorize these movies, that would definitely have to be like a rule that's set. That it's like no alternate timelines, you know, it has to be in the real world of the originals.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I would highly recommend Lock and Key. To me, it has a whole lot of imagination on how that world works and stuff, and there aren't many shows that I can say this with, but the shit is like, the show was magical.
All right, high praise. Add it to the Netflix watching list.
And another thing that this movie is normally I use this phrase most of the time with artists and bands, but this movie is the apology movie, because you know it always felt disrespectful that for all these years they tried to do a Ghostbusters 3, a true Ghostbusters 3. Closest we got was that video game, and then as soon as Harold Ramis died, it's like boom, screw everybody, we're doing Girlbusters. And they went hardcore in it, threw a lot of money at it, got a whole lot of people in it. And the thing is like I said before, everyone 30, 40 years from now will remember Ghostbusters, but they will not remember the remake. And so this is definitely the apology. After that movie did pretty horribly, it wasn't too long after that when it was like, boom, Dan Aykroyd and everybody's working on a true sequel that will ignore the events of Ghostbusters Answer the Call.
And I'm glad that, they didn't go with the original idea for the response to the Girlbusters movie, where they were going to do an all guy one again, but it was going to be like Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. It was basically going to be the same movie again, but with male comedic actors.
It would have been 21 Jump Street, but not as good.
For me personally, the whole problem with the 2016 one was beyond the controversy. Like, there was no controversy for me when it came to the actresses who were cast.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the execution of the movie that was bad.
It was just not funny.
That it wasn't funny because that's subjective.
I said
I feel like both this and Afterlife kind of missed the true spirit of Ghostbusters, but in two different ways.
Like I said, Kate McKinnon was the only character in that movie that I felt could actually work. She was a little more over the top than she probably should have been, but she was the only one that I was like, yeah, I see what y'all are doing with her, and I think she could definitely, if you had her and Egon in a room together, they would probably destroy the universe.
She would have worked in the real Ghostbusters. Like, design lends itself to animation.
She could have easily been in like the cartoon.
And that's kind of what I feel like Ghostbusters as a franchise, if we're really going to continue it, I don't think movies are the way to go. And same thing with Star Wars, where the success is really, well, not so much with Star Wars anymore because they're overdoing it with the TV shows, but Ghostbusters could have worked with a new, like, maybe 3D animated series on Nickelodeon a la Ninja Turtles, or with a new team even if you wanted to, or, you know, I think Red Letter Media used the title The Legacy of Egon Spengler, where I agree that some of the ideas in this movie aren't bad, but probably could have used like an HBO spin-off, like mini-series to really flesh out, the Evo Shandor small town, like the whole mythology of this.
And you know,
so
yeah.
It's just a rushed remake of Ghostbusters 1 at the end.
Because, yeah, like, the original cartoon, it was basically its own sequel, and then, weirdly enough, they sort of did its own legacy sequel with, was it Ghostbusters Extreme?
Yes, yeah, Extreme Ghostbusters.
That's what it was.
That's another point I wanted to make, where I feel like that worked with kids fighting Ghostbusters because they were college age, so they were still.
Yeah, it wasn't putting 12-year-olds in danger.
Yeah, exactly, and also just like unrealistic. I feel like a lot of people, like, I'm willing to work with this movie. Like, this second watch, like, I was a lot more accepting than I thought I was going to be, but the suspension of disbelief really is hard to get over with. It's like the proton pack's not a toy. Egon even said it in Ghostbusters 2. It's like these are kids. And even in the real Ghostbusters cartoon, they tried to do like the junior Ghostbusters, and those episodes all sucked. It never really, like, the whole kid Ghostbusters, I get what marketing people think when they try to do this, where it's like kids want somebody to relate to because they want to be the Ghostbusters, but it's like, yeah, no, exactly, they want to be the real Ghostbusters, not, you know, they want to be Batman, not Robin.
Yeah. So, the movie.
Without further ado.
Yeah, the movie starts off. And the movie starts off. I like the vibe, man. I like the way. Obviously, you got this coal mining mountain deal, and you don't know at first, but it's Egon speeding out of there. Shit's following him. Something you don't see, some kind of entity, and he runs to.
Evil Dead opening.
Yeah. Very Evil Dead inspired, and he gets to his farm, and he's got this trap, and it doesn't work.
We got Star Wars sound effects as it's like shutting down, and we get a little insight into like this crappy little farmhouse that he's been living in, where you almost kind of get like Emmett Brown vibes from Old Man, where he's kind of become like the mad scientist. He's got his little doodads all over the place.
Which, you know what, dude? Based on our evaluation of his character's personality in our first Ghostbusters Retro, I think it makes sense that his character would just go completely nuts and become a fucking recluse and just take all this shit for himself.
That's what I was thinking too. A lot of people really couldn't wrap their heads around that, but we had the know-how, okay? Mm-hmm. Like, we picked up on the signs long before anybody else did, before it was too late, you know?
Yeah.
This man was unhinged, and in a moment, like, he just snapped, and it was all gone, and he fled.
Because you gotta think, man. I'm gonna tell everybody, watch the first two again, definitely the first one, and just pay attention to him. Pay attention to his mannerisms. He's already uncomfortable being around people anyway, so it would eventually just happen. He gets when he explains the whole ancient Sumerian and Gosher stuff in the first movie, his face lights up and he smiles like you've never seen before. Like, he is into this shit. So already he's got a massive knowledge of crazy, wild, occult shit. And absolutely believes everything about it. And
he likes this Shandor guy, so why not go to the heart? Like, bro, this guy built a whole town. Like, yo, I'm going there.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense based on our evaluation of his mindset.
Even if he was concerned there was a looming threat, we'll get to the Dan Aykroyd scene, but even if he was concerned it was a looming threat, the way we have analyzed him, like, he still would have gone just out of his own sick curiosity anyway.
Yeah. So...
And it's a secluded house in the middle of nowhere, so, you know, no room for screams or anything like that. He could take a couple of his victims.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably got some bodies in there. He's probably doing weird near-death experiences and shit, trying to find the soul of the body.
Yeah, because the moment he gets caught by the ghost, you see his little soul flee out, and you never have really seen that with humans in the Ghostbusters universe.
But also, you never see anyone really die in the Ghostbuster movies either.
It's true.
This is probably the first time, like, motherfuckers get killed. At least two that I can think of. Him and the guy who built the town or whatever the shit.
Oh my god, yeah. Evo Shand. His name is basically Evil.
Oh, I didn't catch on to that.
Evil Shandor. I don't know if, like, the Shandor is supposed to be something, but he was one of the bosses in the video game that is now decanonized, which I find really weird, and even though it says this movie was made for Harold Ramis, it seems a little odd that they would decanonize a sequel that he wrote himself with Dan Aykroyd.
So, you say the video game was decanonized?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Hell, another part of my notes in this is, you could almost say this movie decanonizes Ghostbusters 2, because there is absolutely no mention of any of the events from Ghostbusters 2 in this movie. They all go back to the first movie. They keep talking about, yeah, they were on the roof and da-da-da, save Manhattan. Well, what about, even in the mine, where you have the timeline and the different dates, it goes from 1984 to 2001. There's no 1989 in there. So like 1984, oh yeah, the ghost took over Manhattan. Well, what about 89 when it happened again? And then the Statue of Liberty, they got the goo to make the Statue of Liberty walk around Manhattan and shit. Like, they mentioned nothing. Say what?
I said, you'd think that would have made the news. And I did think about this. For the longest time, I was with you that they just got rid of Ghostbusters 2. But I believe, according to Dan Aykroyd, Ghostbusters 2 is still canon, despite them not mentioning it. And here is kind of my way of working around that, is that the whole Vigo situation wasn't related to the Gozer thing. So Shandor wouldn't have that on his calendar because he didn't give a fuck about Vigo, you know what I mean? He probably didn't even know who he was. You know what I mean? That was just a separate ghost entity. And if we're going by the timeline of this movie that, you know, there was a drought in ghost events, then it actually kind of enhances Ghostbusters 2 when they're down on their luck in the beginning and there hasn't really been a lot of business. It kind of makes sense that it's like, hey, after the whole Gozer thing, shit, like what? Because we always complain that it's like, how come the city turned their back on them within such a short time period, where it's like, well, if you imagine that there's been zero paranormal activity since that, and it's been even as small amount of years as it's been, that still leaves a lot of room for people to make some conspiracy theories.
Yeah. And to me, though, like, I wouldn't say it was decanonized. Your theory there makes sense. I'm just pointing out the fact that this movie went hardcore just to reference the first one.
Yeah, it definitely wanted to ignore Ghostbusters 2, for sure.
Which at the same time, Ghostbusters 2 is not as universally loved as the first one, so I get it. But I just thought it was weird.
But with what Zach said about Egon being an absent father, I actually don't mind that because, like we've mentioned, he is unhinged and he doesn't seem that socially acclimated to like deep connections with people. Like
Yeah.
even with Janine,
He would be a horrible father.
my problem with it is like with who? It's like it doesn't even seem like he fucked slime. He didn't fuck humans. Like, and like as much as people don't like Ghostbusters 2, and as fanficky and fan filmy as it sounds, the logical conclusion is to go with Oscar the baby all grown up, and that way he kind of could have had training from Egon, and he has the know-how like that, but he could also have Venkman as a stepdad, and he's kind of inherited some of that snark. Then you can kind of have Paul Rudd be his little college roommate, you know what I mean, when they were younger, of course, but now that the Ghostbusters are coming back into business, hey, come join the crew, and he could fill the role as more of the Venkman rather than the Lewis, you know what I mean? So you could have Oscar being more of the Egon, kind of like what Phoebe's doing, leading the team, and you could have Paul Rudd be the comedic relief he was meant to be.
Yeah. So
I don't know how you feel about that, because I know like you're not big on the baby, but as long as he's grown up.
yeah, as long as he's grown up, he's not the baby anymore. Just don't bring another baby in there. But yeah, Egon would be a horrible father, but he'd probably be a great granddad. You know what I mean?
That's what this movie pretty much summarizes.
Yeah, because Phoebe is all Egon all the way, all day long, and
that scene with Janine is so awkward though, because if it's not with Janine, then who did he do it with? And then also, like, if it is Janine, like, why is she so, like, quiet about it? Like, she should just be like, I'm your real mother. But, just look at Phoebe. She looks like Janine and Egon put together.
Yeah, and you see, that's another thing, too, with this Ghostbuster 2 deal. So, we all talked about, the first Ghostbusters, Janine is totally in love with Egon. But in Ghostbusters 2, they try to have her totally in love with Rick Moranis. But the moment she really falls for Rick Moranis is when he's wearing Egon's Ghostbuster costume.
Yes, you pointed that out, and it's a really keen observation, because it's like she's settling for Lewis. So we already know by the end of this movie they're not going to be a lasting thing.
Exactly. She is looking at him as Egon. She is totally pretending he is Egon in that uniform.
She just picked another dude with glasses.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what, though? It would be cool if they do come back to that, because that was a weird scene. We're jumping a little ahead here, but when she shows up, it is a little weird, because nobody know who she is. Even me, I was like, wait, is that fucking Annie Potts? And, like, Saj looked it up, and we're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, damn, she don't look like she used to.
And she's on Young Sheldon, and the actress who plays Phoebe is on Young Sheldon. And the way the whole scene is set up, I just feel like somebody switched a channel on me for a second.
Yeah. Now, didn't you say the lady that played Phoebe was on Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was on Handmaid's Tale also, as a young wife. But yeah, so we're jumping, huh?
I think she really nails the Egon mannerisms, actually. Like,
to an extent, yeah.
And as far as child actors go, it's like, no, I think she nailed it. My problem is more so with the writing than the performances.
I think the worst thing were the dumb jokes. Some of the dumb jokes were actually fairly chuckable, but I think they went a little hard on it. Like, all right, okay.
They tried too hard to make it a quirk.
Yeah, like, nah, sorry, that's not working for me. But back to the story. So the trap doesn't work, and Egon runs in the house, and he pulls out an EMF reader, and which is another thing I do like, that they don't say what that thing is at all in the movie. Like, nobody knows what it is, but if you know your ghost hunting shit. So he pulls out an EMF reader to see where this ghost is, and he sits on the chair. And the man's just given up at this point. He's like, fuck it. All my shit's not working anymore. I'm just gonna sit here. But I love the way the fog just rolls in. I like that shot. You see behind the chair.
In the chair.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me, I don't know, was it the Korean movie The Eye, where it's like you can't look at the ghosts? That's when they kill you. It's like you have to stand, almost like a T-Rex, you have to stand perfectly still, and they're like floating behind you, and there's like a really creepy scene in an elevator where there's like a levitating dude behind the girl, and you could feel it behind you, but you can't turn around. Like, that's the vibe I got from, like, there is a feeling that Egon's given up, but I kind of feel like he was trying to trick the ghost in a way. Because you see him turn his head the moment the fog leaves. Like, he's kind of like, all right, I'm in the clear. And then the PKE meter shifts into, like, this weird ghost taser right before the hands come out, which is something I've never seen before in Ghostbusters. So it kind of feels like he was kind of almost trying to do, like, a last-minute, like, outmaneuver.
Yeah, and so the hands come out of the couch or the chair, very much like in the first movie when Sigourney Weaver gets possessed. Am I right?
That's like one of the first callbacks, aside from like the ghost busting equipment itself. Like, here's where we're actually seeing the motifs of like scenes and stuff that we've seen before.
Yeah, but in Ghostbusters, that thing's like, I'm possessing this woman, and this one it's like, I am fucking killing this motherfucker.
Yeah, this one's out for blood. Zool, motherfucker.
Yeah, Zool, motherfucker. And so...
That was a real Zool, motherfucker moment.
Yeah. So then, boom, Egon Ghost, or barely Ghost, Egon Beam Light flies.
What I expected here was, with the outside shot of the house, I thought the beam was going to fly away, and then you were going to hear...
Yeah, that would have been horrible. That would have been the dumbest way to start that movie. Like,
that's what I thought it was going to be, and I thought it was going to be awkward, but I thought that was going to be like the producer's like idea of like, yeah, that's how we're ramping up Ghostbusters 3, the death of Egon. But
yeah,
it's coming back inside. And it's
if this movie came out in 1999, that's exactly how it would start. Egon dies, and then yeah, this isn't your parents' Ghostbusters. We're killing motherfuckers.
With the Ray Parker Jr. Egon's dead.
Who's he gonna call? Nobody.
Not Egon.
God, Jesus. So, boom. I guess what happens here? It cuts to big city nowhere, and
establishing shot.
Chaotic house. Mom running around. This tells you how This tells you how it's a single mom. Mom's running around like a chicken with its head cut off. The kids are acting up. People's banging on the door, and she's doing like 5 things at once. And then
these are the first implications you're watching like a Jason Reitman movie, because even though Ivan Reitman's his dad, as a director, Jason Reitman is just a very different. Like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't expect him to make an Ivan Reitman movie, and this is where, like, the tonal collides, like, right from the get-go, start to kind of rear its ugly head a little bit, even though I will say I enjoyed the first half of the movie more so on the second go than the further half of the movie. But you do kind of have, like, these moments of, like, indie drama where they're not a very wealthy... They're not very good money-wise, and she's doing her own kid's hair. She's, like, snipping him on the ears.
Yeah.
Phoebe's doing her experiments and fucking with the lights.
Yeah.
They're about to be evicted.
The place is a mess, and but I will say this part did bring there's a little throwaway line that I actually laughed at. I was like, that was a pretty good line there. There's the banging on the door, and he's like, "Mom, door," or whatever. She's like, "Don't you have legs?" He's like, "I'm not an adult." I actually thought that.
Like that one. That's the thing. There is a couple of really good throwaway lines that still feel like they have that kind of cynical dryness of the Ghostbusters universe, but then it's kind of paralleled with the cinematography and scene or, something like that.
Yeah, because he made Juno also. Jason Reitman, he had directed that. He fucks with Diablo Cody a lot, apparently. But a thing I wanted to mention, too, during the Egon leaving the mountain scene, they have this shot where his car flies through at this weird angle, and you see that 1950s diner, Spinners. They showed that diner a few times, especially when they first get over there to Somerville. And then toward the end of the movie, you get the same shot where the Ecto-1 is cutting through, but now the P has, the light has gone out in the P and it says Sinners. I thought that was really cool.
Ah, I didn't notice that. That is a nice little touch. That's cool.
So
There's a couple of different moments in this that remind me of older movies, but not necessarily Ghostbusters. Like, I wrote a note where if the original Ghostbusters was a John Landis movie, this one is like the John Hughes Ghostbusters movie.
I feel you there. I know exactly what you mean.
By like the later half with the Marshmallow Man, it becomes the Joe Dante Ghostbusters movie.
Definitely Joe Dante vibes with the little marshmallow dudes. Small soldiers, gremlins, even like the gingerbread men from the Krampus movie from the guy that made.
You get the little men from Army of Darkness as well. Like there's so many scenes it reminded me of. But it's definitely as a whole more so like the John Hughes Ghostbusters movie in a sense, with sprinkles of Spielbergian whimsy.
Yeah.
A little bit of, like I said, Emmett Brown is basically what Egon became. There's like those kind of Spielberg Zemeckis touches in there.
Yeah.
Which I don't know is necessarily right for Ghostbusters, so that's why I say I agree with, if this were a miniseries that were a spin-off in the Ghostbusters universe but didn't have Ghostbusters in the title, like if it was called like Egon, or like, Red Letter Media said the legacy of Egon Spengler, like, I feel like I could have digested it a lot better when I was watching it the first time.
Yeah, I get why they're doing that vibe, because like I said, this is running on that Stranger Things thing, so it's like it's gotta have that whimsiness in there, it's gotta have the Spielbergian vibes and shit, just because it's that type of story. So I get it. Like, I'm not tired of this format yet, but
it's not the worst thing to do it with.
Yeah, and I think it does give this a more distinct vibe away from its predecessors as well, which I think is kind of refreshing. I'm glad they're just not trying to make it look and feel and sound like the first two Ghostbuster movies, which is also why I do like the fact that it's in a small town, a really tiny small town where there's nothing to do, as opposed to big old city New York. So it's doing a lot. It's doing a whole lot to differentiate itself from the original Ghostbusters, but at the same time doing a lot to call back to the original Ghostbusters.
I agree that although I really go crazy for the city representation, like taking the action into a small town was a really good choice, and I think it does lend itself more to like spooky atmospheres, scene opportunities that aren't in Walmart.
Speaking of that Walmart scene, where the fuck were the customers? He was the only motherfucker in there. There's two other cars in the parking lot. When he runs to his car, there's only two other cars. Go ahead.
It was the last scene probably to be shot. Empty-ass Walmart. Like, there's not even an employee in there. Like, I think he broke in.
Yeah. He broke in and turned all the lights on.
But you made a good point where it's differentiating itself enough, because one of the things I found baffling was I like Ghostbusters 2, and a lot of people's criticisms with Ghostbusters 2 is it was a little too kiddie, a little too whimsy for a Ghostbusters sequel, and now here comes a Ghostbusters movie with kids busting ghosts and whimsy, and the overall audience loves it, and loves it because of that. But I think it's what you're saying, though, is that it is making its efforts to not be like the previous two, where that stuff can probably work a little better. And also, it's not Ghostbusters 3. This is Ghostbusters Afterlife. So it is kind of what I said about making it a TV show. It is a spin-off. It isn't a, like, direct... It isn't Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah. So...
It's this weird passion project.
Yeah, it's a tribute to Jason's dad, and it's a tribute to Harold, and it's an apology, and it's there for the fans. It's made for the fans by relatives and personnel of the originals. So I think this had a lot more heart into it. This is what should have happened instead of the Melissa McCarthy, Paul Feig, or whatever the shit, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, just throwing a statue of Harold Ramis in the background of the 2016 one wasn't enough.
Yeah, that was just... No. But, so, what happens next is, this is something I got in my notes here, so the door's banging, Mom opens the door, and then it's like okay, alright, she opens the door, and why is it always a Russian landlord?
Yeah, that is one of, like, the new modern stereotypes in movies that nobody really talks about.
Yeah. It's always a Russian landlord. And I've been seeing this for ages. Remember, the landlord and the whole family of landlord in Spider-Man 2. Fucking... But,
Mr. Dinkovich.
Yeah, but they were funny,
Where's
though.
my money?
They were funny. I liked them a lot. But I'm like, the man gets like 8 lines. He's there for 10 seconds. Why did it have to be a Russian landlord? This could have been anybody. I don't understand. I'm not complaining, but like you said, it's a stereotype.
Over the years.
I guess at this point, we could probably do Russian stereotypes in movies, and nobody would complain because of what's going on over there right now. So,
I am here for you to dump exposition on me.
Yes, and so she does. She just I'm a single mom. I have no money. My dad died. And he's crazy. He left us. He doesn't care about us. But he left me this big old house in the middle of nowhere. And it's like she's just dropping all this crap for the audience to.
You feel like it almost might work, because he's not being a complete jerk about it. This is where in, like, the 2016 movie, just because it's a dude, like, he would have been, like, flipping her off and been like, I don't fucking care. But it seems like he's about to maybe give her a break, but then Phoebe fucks with the lights and he sees it, and, so there's already this tension between, you could already tell that Phoebe and her mom, not that they don't get along, the mom cares about her, but because she's already got that Egon in her, and because she has distanced herself so much from fuck science, fuck that, she can't connect to her daughter on an emotional level, because these are now just like the hobbies that she's into, and because of that connection, she's already doing like fuck shit around the house and making trouble.
Yeah, she's like, you remind me too much of my dad, you're no daughter of mine. I like my son better because he reminds me of his deadbeat dad working on cars and shit.
I like my son better because he reminds me of that Netflix show.
Yeah. What show are you on, honey?
You remind me of young Sheldon. Get out of here.
And so, but yeah, he's like, I change lock when you leave. I'm just like, damn.
It's the eviction on there. But that gets our family on the road.
Yeah, so boom, on the road to at first I'm like, all right, so where is this? I'm liking the view, I'm liking the vibe. I'm like, where is this? I guess you find out it's in Oklahoma eventually, but it's like long into it there because it's just Somerville. It's just Somerville, and I'm like, okay, so is this gonna be small town nowhere, USA?
Cowardly Dog.
Yeah, exactly. But eventually, I believe you find out it's Oklahoma when they give Ray a call, and I'm like, damn, it took them this long to drop.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Without Ray, that's like exposition dump number 2 because we've already been an hour in, and if you're nodding off a little bit, it's that little like everybody got that, everybody remember this is Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Yeah, because like at this point you're like, all right, you're still wondering, okay, why?
And Ghostbusters 2 is canon because she calls Ray's occult books.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
So that is the Ghostbusters 2 set.
True. All right, feel you there. Totally works. I wasn't thinking about
with
it.
a bat for Ghostbusters 2. It's a hill I will die on.
Yeah, because at this point, like, by the time they give Ray the call, you're still wondering, all right, why did Egon leave? Why is he such a dick? What happened that made him decide to, go here and do all this crazy ghosting and shit? He straight up ghosted his family.
It reminds me of like when the Creed movies came out, and in the first movie they established that Apollo Creed had like an illegitimate son, and some people really didn't like that choice in the writing because they're like, oh, it kind of feels like it makes a good character like Apollo worse of a guy. But I'm like, you got to remember Apollo in the first movie where he's a cocky boxer, you know what I mean? And he's making millions, you know what I mean? It's like, I do not think it's out of the realm of reality that he would be, a bit of a player at times.
He's probably got a few baby Creeds running around ready to box.
Mm-hmm, you know what I mean? So, he was riding high on that success. This was before he even became friends with Rocky. Like, he was pissed at him at Rocky, too. Like, we see a real character evolution there. So kind of going back to like, yeah, I didn't expect if Egon were to be a father, yeah, he probably wouldn't be that great of a father. Not even like by choice, like not even that he doesn't care. Much like Phoebe, there's just that disconnect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't connect to him on that level, like Janine, you know what I mean? It's like you're not going to get anything from him.
So they get to the farm, which I think is a cool looking set. Psycho house vibes all the way.
It is definitely a Bateman motel, and there is one decent throwaway line when they're going through the town. Finn Wolfhard's looking at his phone, and he goes, not a single bar. And then the mom goes, there better be a bar.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I wrote that line was funny until Phoebe had to tell us that it was.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb. But then you got there's this little barricade with crazy old wild man writings all over it. Shit from the Bible. Shit from the Bible written down just to scare people.
Also just to be a callback to the first movie. Because that's the fucking shit that they're talking about Ray and Winston in the car.
Yeah, you're right.
The Judgment Day.
Again, it would make sense that Egon would get that shit in his head so much. But what's got me wondering is like, okay, what made Egon go back to all this Gozer shit after they all assumed the Gozer shit was done after the first movie?
This is where I wrote down in my notes that much like Star Wars, this is where alternative media needs to come in and fill in the gaps. And it is a ding towards the movie because movies shouldn't have to be like that, but this is almost worthy of, like, I had an idea for a comic where you show the three other Ghostbusters dealing with their friend mentally deteriorating and then leaving, and then them trying to pick up the slack of the company. Because Dan Aykroyd's whole idea with Ghostbusters, the initial idea was it was in the future, and they had grown into this, like, national, even international, like, corporate ghost-busting force. And to have this happen kind of throws a monkey wrench into, like, even though we've never seen it in the movies, like, in my head, that's, like, the established canon of what happens with Ghostbusters. That even when the old original guys retire, they probably got, like, Ghostbusters St. Louis, Ghostbusters fucking, Miami, Ghostbusters.
You could see them eventually just being CEOs of a company and like getting together for a later movie where it's like now they're the bosses and they haven't busted ghosts in like 20 years, and they're like, I sure do. And for some reason they have to put the jumpsuits back on and it's like, oh yeah, I sure missed this. And they kind of do that in this, but in a different way.
Yeah, it just kind of seems weird that the Ghostbusters completely faded away. And I would like to see, like, some expanded media on, like, what made the other three... Like, they say that Egon took everything with him, which seems like, what big-ass fucking truck did he take to bring all... But it's not the truck we saw at the beginning, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then if he took everything, how did they all show back up, full gear, proton packs and all?
Yeah, because they show up in front of the house where all those jumpsuits were hidden, like, under the floorboards, you know what I mean? So it's like, where did they have the time to, like, Superman, like, phone booth change and show up? Because it looked like he had all 4 Ghostbusters jumpsuits in there.
Yeah, enough for all 4 kids to put on, which I'm going to wait before I say anything about this until we get there.
But ultimately, my whole ironic thing with this comic book idea was that you call it Ghostbusters 3, but you spell it out. THREE, because it's 3 of them.
Ah, okay.
And it's about them. You kind of keep it like it's bridging the gap between Ghostbusters 2 and Afterlife, where almost like you could start with something that's more tonally like the original Ghostbusters, and then we kind of drift more into this drama tone as Egon becomes more mentally unraveled.
Yeah, so they're driving into the town, and they're mentioning how it's summer. They're like, what? We thought we were just only going to be here for a week. Well, it's like, sorry, we live here now. And they get to the house, and it's like every horror movie, every haunted house movie where the family moves into the house and they've never seen it before, and it's already fully furnished and shit, and they're like, wow, this is my room, but so they go in there.
Cobwebs and like dust all over, but it is still like pretty, like everything's already set up basically. It's movie disheveled, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
and then there is a funny throwaway line where what was it, Phoebe, break into your grandfather's house.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So they get in there, they look around, and then boom, Annie Potts shows up, and which is like I was gonna say earlier, it would be cool to come back to that and be like, I am your mom. No. They don't really drop hints, and so if they were to do it, it would kind of be out of left field and stupid. But
yeah, she kind of hesitates that she was like, I was Egon's friend, and it's like, if you're not the mom, then you're making it sound like I was the person your dad had an affair with.
Yeah, he left me for you in this farm or house. But she comes in. I don't even really remember what she says or does.
She basically informs them that they're shit out of luck. That she's like, I worked for your father. I did like. She's like, oh, you did financial stuff, and she's like, oh, there was no money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She basically said
basically to collect whatever like money she can get from it to go back and hopefully like deal with that eviction shit. But now they're living. They're there.
Yeah. But they mentioned. So they mentioned that it's summer, and we got to be here for the whole summer. And then, so I guess it's later that night, so they go to the Spinner's Diner, and it's like, what's funny about this is she's like, well, I can't believe places like this still exist. It's a 1950s style diner, rollerblade car hops, the whole thing. And I'm like, well, is she going to say, I can't believe places like this still exist? And I'm like, well, you lived in big city nowhere. I'm sure there was about 8 Sonics, and even now most Sonics don't do rollerblades, but the Sonic that weirdly enough, we lived on Somerville Road here in Phoenix City, and we were 3 houses down by a Sonic, and there was one lady that would ride the roller skates. But I'm like, yeah, y'all didn't have a Sonic there, but
it's actually ironic while watching the movie.
Crazy. So then...
Subliminal messaging. I was like, I needed some of them rollerblade burgers.
So Finn Wolfie sees a girl. He's like, oh man, I like this girl. His whole point in this movie is to fix the car, drive the car, and like a girl. That's all he does.
Yeah, and he's always having other guys who become part of his like non-friend group, like making fun of him. My name's Trevor.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's almost unnecessary for him to even be in this movie at all.
This is the reason the movie's like 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Yeah, it would make more sense for her only child to be the Phoebe, because then she would have no child to connect with.
And what sucks too is that, I mean, I know we already saw it on Stranger Things, but it's like Finn Wolfhard doesn't look bad in the Ghostbusters jumpsuit. It's like he probably, like even a little older, could probably be a convincing Ghostbuster, but you're absolutely right. He is a car subplot. Like, he is there to be the mechanic.
Yeah, and we'll get to that too when we get there. So the next day, so he clumsily introduces himself, but the next day she's driving him to work, and she's driving her to school, and at first I'm like, I thought it was fucking summer. What's going on here? Oh, I hate school. No, you like school. Oh, I like learning. This is just a public prison for children or something. But then you find out it's a summer school, which I kind of thought was funny. She gets in there, and weirdly enough, like, it's not filled with your stereotypical summer school kids. It's kind of filled with your stereotypical AV club nerd kids.
ADHD kids.
Yeah. Who should probably not be going to summer school. Who should probably have finished their work long before everybody else.
If the podcast isn't a dumb kid, he was probably just really distracted with his podcast.
Yeah.
He's doing live in school, which would probably be really annoying IRL, but that little interaction between her and Phoebe, and how he doesn't even give up after she says that her grandfather's dead. Like, I really like his character, but fuck, why is he named Podcast?
Yeah, that's just so dumb.
Because we don't know. Listen, I know podcasts are very popular right now, but it's like, this is something that could, A, potentially date the movie, and two, it's like, literally, you could just call him anything.
He could have had a really cool name, you know what I mean? He could have had a really cool name, because the name of his podcast is actually pretty cool. He could have had a cool name for his podcasting host character. But instead of, could you imagine, hi, I'm Podcast, welcome to my podcast. Like, really? Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't call him that on the show.
See?
Like, I hope it's his first name, maybe like in quotes, Podcast, and then last name.
Yeah, I'm Tommy Podcast Jarvis.
And then Tommy Jarvis is his name. He's definitely dealt with some paranormal activity in his past.
Tommy Podcast Doyle.
Dude, Finn Wolfhard gives him a terrible nickname of the nickname where he calls him Podkey.
Did he?
Yeah, once. He gets flung back by Gozer, and he goes like, Podkey, look out!
What the shit?
No, he said Lucky.
That's what it was, Lucky, because he was calling out to his little wannabe girlfriend.
Lucky, I was like, Podkey?
So, she goes into school, and I kind of thought this was funny. Paul Rudd walks in, and, he's talking to her mom and stuff. He's like, oh, yeah, obviously, another person that's going to have a girlfriend-boyfriend thing. That's all they're here for. And then he goes into class, and this man is the worst teacher ever. And he's like, here, y'all ever see Cujo? Check it out. I'm going to go in this back room and tinker with shit.
This is what I mean, that he's more of a Lewis than a Ghostbuster. He's not as dorky as Lewis, but he's more so the modern, and think about it. Lewis is Revenge of the Nerds, basically. Like, he is the 80s depiction of a dweeb. who's just like amped up to like a little bit more neuroticism. Fucking Gary Gruberson is basically like a Smosh character at times. You know what I mean?
Another thing, why?
Because he's a seismologist, so like he is smarter than like the script even really gives him credit for. I like his relationship with Phoebe, where he indulges and encourages her to be herself, because that's also an ongoing line with the mom and Phoebe. Is I think they say "Don't be yourself," like as a joke or something like that.
Yeah. And he said, even though he's like telling her mom during their little date, like, yeah, your daughter's awesome, da-da-da-da-da, science is cool.
Science rule. I'm a science guy.
But like, why does he have to have a weird name? Like, that's another thing that I've seen a lot here recently, is just characters with weird names just because people think it's funny.
It feels like first draft names, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because then too, calling him Gary Gruberson, it reminds me so much of one of the greatest scenes in movie history, in House of a Thousand Corpses, when you get to the pussy liquor store, and she's like, "How you doing, Goober?" He's like, "Actually, my name's, it says G Ober for Gary Ober, but my friend put that extra O in there. Fucking asshole."
And she's like, "Okay, Goober."
Yeah. So it reminds me of that. Gary Gruberson. It reminds me of that. And
it's also very much like a Marvel name. We're going to have like the alliteration. I'm Gary Gruberson, and I was bit by a radioactive ghost.
Yeah, seriously. Gary Gruberson sees ghosts. Gary Gruberson, ghost hunter.
USA. Paul Rudd. Gary Gruberson. Paranormal, MD, or like whatever, like MD.
Hell yeah. But, so yeah, he throws Cujo on, and then what happens next?
That's another thing I've noticed. So you noticed with, like, the Russian landlords, one thing that these legacy and soft reboot movies love to do, even if it's not related to the nostalgia of the movie, like, there's always characters watching older movies. Like, I think in the Child's Play remake, where it was Mark Hamill playing the robot Chucky, they're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 on the TV. It all goes back to, like, in Halloween when they're watching The Thing. Like, there's always something in movies, but now, like, again...
You're seeing that a lot in movies, which I think is kind of cool, because it makes it feel like... Shit like that I always liked, and especially horror movies, because it made them feel more grounded in reality, whereas these movies that we all watch, these characters are watching too.
Yeah. But there's, like, when Scream does it, there's a purpose. For here, it's like, well, why are they watching Child's Play? I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. It's meant to show that he's an irresponsible teacher.
Yeah, who loves horror movies.
Yeah. But I don't know, it's just something I noticed. It's another part of that Stranger Things syndrome where the teacher in that was watching The Thing when he was on his date and going off about all the different points of the filmmaking and stuff like that. It's become, not that I'm complaining, it's just a trope I have noticed has increased over the years.
Yeah, damn sure has. So what happens next? And so is this when they're back at the house?
Well, first we get kind of the establishment between the mom and Gary. Right before we get into the scene where he's showing them Cujo, we have a quick little moment of flirting between them, where his sense of humor, even though he's a geek who's into science, they meet on that humor level. Like, he's able to dish back what she gives, and that puts a smile on her face, because she has a real dour sense of humor. Like, every comment out of her mouth is negative. You know what I mean? And he is that, like, one little streak of positivity.
Yeah.
I like how he's not a goober with her. He's not really a Lewis. That's why I get disappointed when he becomes the Lewis.
Yeah.
Because he is charming in this movie. I don't mind the Gary character. He just has a shitty name and ultimately, like, I wouldn't say crappy purpose. Like, he serves his role, but again, like, I'm personally disappointed that that's all he amounted to.
Yeah.
He amounts to red eyes, and then he's like, I like your eyes.
So, I'm guessing after the school scene, they're back at the house, and the Finn wolf was showing him at work too, and he's in the freezer, and he's like cold, and he's like putting shit up, and she gives him this hoodie. She's like, here, wear my hoodie, and it's got a wolf on it. I'm like, ha ha, wolf is in his name.
But then she's also like, oh, it's my boyfriend, and he's all bummed out. And again, these are, I feel like, filler moments, and I feel bad. I'm not trying to crap on Ivan Reitman's style, but it almost feels like a compulsion where it's like, you have to throw in, like, these little scenes out of an indie movie.
Yeah,
like,
that's definitely a filler moment. Whereas a better moment is later on when they're all on top of the mountain hanging out. Like, that actually has purpose. There's, like, no purpose to that scene at all.
Yeah, at least with the mountain scene, number one, by that point in the movie, we've noticed that all these ghosts are fleeing to, like, the edge of town. And then we get, like, the confirmation with the well, at least. So it kind of makes more of those, like, cutesy moments between her. So I'm not saying they don't have chemistry, but it's like, it's neither really here nor there. You don't really care if they get together or not.
Yeah. And then there's also earthquakes. Earthquakes happening in the city. And they mentioned that between this year and 2016, the earthquakes have gained momentum, right? And I'm like, well, y'all know what happened in 2016, right? Ghostbusters with the girls. They buried every copy of that in the mountain, and they can't contain it.
It's overflowing.
Yeah, it's a landfill, a secret landfill of every DVD copy of Ghostbusters 2016 buried in this mountain.
What was it? It's like, I really like the chemistry between Phoebe and Podcast better than anything going on with the girl.
Yeah, and they better just be buddies, you know what I mean? Like, they better not try to, because they're working on a sequel now, and everybody's coming back, they better not try to make this girlfriend-boyfriend thing, you know? Like, just make them buddies. Right. They don't need relationships. They're 12 years old, for God's sakes.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. They're junior busters. They're busting buddies.
Busting buddies. That just sounds wrong.
It does, doesn't it?
But so they're at the house, I guess, and she's playing. She's got this chessboard, and a piece moves overnight, and she's like, that's weird. So she decides to move a piece. And then this is like the moment everyone's like, all right, let's just kind of discover the house. And so I guess Finn is walking through the garage, and he sees this old car, and he sees the Ghostbuster logo just a second, and I guess, the lights cut out or something?
It really does, like, you're still being reminded that it's like, they don't know what happened.
Yeah, and then they even, like, it's throwaway lines, too, like, because even then it's like, yeah, our granddad was a Ghostbuster. Did you ever hear the story? He's like, oh, yeah, I know about the ghosts in Manhattan, at the end. Like, well, damn.
Here's another question, because even though, like, they're divorced, like, and her maiden name is Spengler, and they keep, like, hiding that off, like, they keep waiting to drop the name Spengler, what was the name that she married into? Because Spengler wouldn't be Phoebe's last name. Spengler wouldn't be Trevor's last name.
Like, maybe they never got married. Did she mention they were divorced?
That's true. It could have just been, like, the last person they were with. That's a good point.
Yeah, they probably, just got together, had the kids, and tried to make it work, and then maybe it just didn't work.
But even if they tried to make it work, like, wouldn't Phoebe still technically, like, it depends. I guess all families are different, but that's kind of where my mind was going. It's like, wouldn't she still have a different last name?
I guess if it also depends on the birth certificate too. Like, when they put the name on the birth certificate, what last name do you want? Who knows?
Yeah, for all we know, the relationship was that bad by the time they were already born. She was just like, it's Phoebe Spangler.
Yeah, exactly. Because maybe, because obviously Finn Wolfhard is the oldest kid. Maybe the dad ran out before Phoebe was born, but after she was pregnant with her.
That could be. That could be.
And at this point, Phoebe mom, I don't even remember her name. Phoebe mom is like, you know what? Put Spangler on there.
See, this invites more dark theories than the original 2 movies.
It does. It does, man. Because she's a bitter woman, because it's like, does she even have a job? Or is she in between jobs? Like, what's going on here? Do these kids need to be saved?
Something like Finn Wolfhard filler, like, that's a whole other thing. It's like, what is she doing for money that, she can't pay the rent, and then also she came here for the money, but now you're stuck there. So it's like, yeah, you got to get a job.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure rent can't be that much on that house given how poor that damn town is.
And she's like, I'm going out with Gary and stuff like that, and we see it. Well, he probably paid for it, but still.
Yeah. Maybe she's trying to get with him because he has money and he has a job, and eventually they'll get together, and it's like she's just going to drop it all on him.
I'm going to be Mrs. Gruberson Spangler.
Oh my God.
What a name.
And so they're walking around the house, and I don't know, is this when she finds the trap buried under the floor? Is that what she found under the floor?
That's actually what she found under the floorboard. Yes.
Yeah, because the jumpsuits were in the little basement.
Yeah, the jumpsuits were in his little torture chamber.
Yeah. And so then it shows them back at the school, and she's playing with the trap, and that's when Paul Rudd is like, whoa, that's a really cool replica. It's like, a replica of what? And he's like, you don't know about the Ghostbusters? Fucking, that's a trap, yo.
And that's the thing, too. He doesn't say you don't know about the Ghostbusters. Like, that's the thing. It's like these commercials exist, and they don't just call them the Ghostbusters. He's like, you don't remember the Ghost event of 1984? And then when you go on the clip, he's like, yeah, then these 4 physicists came along. It's like, no, you'd be like, yo, those are the fucking Ghostbusters. Like, they're literally chanting their names.
Yeah, seriously. They got a theme song, motherfucker.
Bro, they had fucking free Ghostbusters mugs and balloons for the kiddies.
Yeah, seriously. Like, yeah, because it's like, it's weird, because it's almost like they're a myth at this point. But it's only been like 30 years.
In this universe, there has to be an episode of like Pawn Stars or Comic Book Men where somebody comes in and he's like, bro, I got the balloons.
Yeah, exactly. They go into Comic Book Men. Fucking Ming is like, holy crap, man, that's an authentic Ghostbusters mug given to little kids during the birthday parties when they were in between jobs because there were no ghosts in Manhattan.
Brian's making snide comments, and then Walt's just like, I'm sorry, I can't take it off you.
Yeah, he's like, man, this thing costs more than I could give you, man. This is authentic, original Ghostbusters memorabilia, bro. This was on set. This was touched by Bill Murray.
Knowing Walt, he would be like looking at it like, there's a scratch there. This looks like it might pop.
Yeah, this scratch takes about $20,000 off the value, man. And then it cuts to Kevin Smith and everybody at the podcast, and he's like, what? And you didn't take it, man?
I can't believe you didn't take it, man.
A real Ghostbusters mug, man? What the hell, dude? And you didn't take it. and it goes back to Kevin Smith. It all comes back to Kevin Smith.
I can't help it. We've been in this universe for forever. Time stopped.
Like 2 years now? 3 years now?
Oh, yeah, Jesus Christ.
So, I'm glad we're doing something else finally.
But we're still back to the well.
Yeah, we're still back to the well, but, we didn't know this movie was going to happen. We didn't know this movie was going to happen.
We're like Mario. We're jumping different wells and pipes until we get to the truly new stuff.
Yeah. So So he's like, yeah, that's a cool replica, you know. And then they're playing with it, and he finds out that it's the real deal. And he's just like, whoa, where did you get this? No. And he's like showing her. I guess this is when he's explaining to her the crazy shit going around town, and then her and podcast. He talks about ghosts, and they're all into it, but she's like, I don't believe in ghosts. And then this was in my notes. It's like, okay, she says she don't believe in ghosts.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts. At least she didn't say that.
Yeah, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. So then, all right, all of a sudden she's cool and totally down with ghosts.
She's never freaked out when paranormal shit actually starts. Like, there's never a moment of disbelief.
Yeah.
I can't believe what I'm seeing, you know?
Because it's like, you don't believe in ghosts, but you were just playing chess with your ghost granddad. Like, yeah.
What do you feel about that? The whole ghost granddad gonna teach you from the afterlife sort of thing. Like, I do feel like that's where the schmaltziness actually works a little better. I like that it's through lights and flickers, but I also added a note that was like, charming or analog horror? You make the call.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a good little touch. Because in my notes I have this is a nice Harold Ramis tribute, and at the same time a mean Harold Ramis tribute to have all this stuff as, oh yeah, he's deadbeat, that was kind of mean, just to finally be like, you know, when she sees all the pictures that he was sent of her growing up and stuff, oh, he wasn't so deadbeat after all. Like, motherfucker, you could call your family.
And then after that, there's still the whole scene where she's like, oh, well, even if he was a genius, he was still an asshole.
Yeah, so it's like,
well, yeah.
But yeah, I liked the little whimsy lights flickering. Here, go this way, follow the EMF meter. No. I like that a little more. There's a little more thought put into that as opposed to Ghost Egon showing up and being like, hey, here's a thing that you
exactly,
can...
like
yeah.
a video game character, like press A to summon the proton trap.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and so they... I guess it's the next fucking day, but like the chessboard moves some more, and then like the chessboard like explodes on her, or no, he knocks the piece over right there, and it's like she don't even freak out. She's like, huh, that's weird. And part of me wants to complain that she's like, I don't believe in ghosts, and all of a sudden she's cool with it. But then at the same time, it would make sense that she is a very rational thinker kid, that she probably... Yeah, she probably would not freak out. She'd probably be like, okay, I need to investigate this a little more. So maybe it does make sense that she doesn't freak, so I guess I'm kind of glad she doesn't freak, but it's also at the same time, it's like, she's just kind of over it. Yeah, ghosts are real. Ghosts are a thing.
There was two throwaway lines. One, she's like, I convey my emotions internally, so like inside I'm vomiting, when they were talking about Gary and the mom. Mm-hmm. But then also there's another throwaway line where she's like, high tension calms me, or something like that.
Yeah, so Egon's got a little serial killer on his hands.
The gene has spread.
Yeah. It's like on Mr. Brooks, man.
Bro, this movie should have ended with Phoebe stabbing her mom in a clown mask, and Donald Pleasant's like, no!
No! The evil has returned!
Better yet, have it be Bill Murray. Oh God, no.
Yeah. Oh God. So it's like in Mr. Brooks where Kevin Costner's daughter gets the serial killer gene, and so anyway.
Moving on.
Yeah. So they take the pack, I guess, and huh?
I said they take the pack and they smoke it. Moving on.
Yeah. So they take the trap. I mean. And they go to do a little experiment. I heard podcasts and Paul Rudd, and they want to open it up. I guess to see what's in it. And they opened it up, and some ghost comes out of there.
This is what I was going to mention, is that, so we just mentioned how Phoebe internalizes everything. So by the time the ghost actually flies out and it's breaking windows and she actually screams, I was like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Now we actually like got something out of her, you know?
Yeah. So like it comes out and it like destroys the shit out of the school buses and Paul Rudd's car, which I thought was a funny scene when they were driving back and the windshield's busted out and he's just like,
he's got his hands over it. He's
yeah,
like out the window.
He's just like hanging his head out the damn windshield, like, yeah, this is awesome right here. You know, all the wind blowing in his face and shit. And
you know, I really liked the testing of the trap scene. There's that fucking, again, a little touch of the original Ghostbusters line in there, feel in there when he's like, oh yeah, I'm an adult, I'm liable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, all right, let's get out of here. What? I'm an adult. I'm liable. And
so that's the thing. It's like my problem with this movie is like I don't think so far, even when we're talking about it, it's like I don't think this movie is bad. There's some people who act like this movie was bad. It's like I just feel like there's a serious tonal clash that kind of overshadows the whole thing and makes it a little more awkward to get through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the comedy, some of the comedy kind of tries a little too hard, and then while at the same time, like some of the more horror elements are actually pretty good, like pretty not horrifying, but a little more on the darker side than even the earlier Ghostbuster movies. So like there is a slight tonal clash, but it never really bothered me all that much, except for the comedy kind of almost being a little too try-hard in some scenes.
Yeah, no, the tonal clash with me was like the ultimate struggle of the movie, really. It's because I don't go into movies anymore like looking for things to be. It's like I go into movies wanting to be on their side and wanting to just like enjoy them, even if it's connected, even despite all like the talk going on around it, you know what I mean? And it's like I still just have like a head tilt watching this movie where it's like I just don't get the overall like why we had to throw all these things in the blender. Like the result we got wasn't the worst thing, but it's like the thinking of the why in the decision making is always the mystery.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't have much of a problem with it. But so the ghost busts out and they're driving back. Oh yeah, a thing I wanted to mention was I liked that they used a lot of the original Ghostbusters score throughout the movie. That kind of quirky New York orchestral vibe. That
the way the violins sound in the original score, it has that kind of, and the theremin, the fucking.
But I'm talking about that like boom, boom, boom.
And you were mentioning that it's like this was like, I don't want to say a nepotism project, but it's like we have a generational project here where it's like we have the sons of everybody coming back. I believe the guy who did the score to this was either Elmer Bernstein's son or grandson, so it is related to the same guy who did the original Ghostbusters score and a ton of other classic.
Which is cool because it's a legacy sequel, not only in characters but in real people as well. Because you got, like I said, you got the people, you got sons of the people who made the original part of this project as well. Like, there's just a whole lot of heart put in this movie that isn't necessarily in a lot of the legacy sequels. This doesn't feel like a cash grab as much as maybe
like
some
that.
of them.
The 2016 one definitely felt more like a cash grab compared to this one, where they had all the marketing going. They brought back the Ecto Cooler, which I believe this movie also had a limited Ecto Cooler run, but it really was less in your face. So I do give credit to the marketing, where it's like they definitely were letting you know this was going to be a different toned movie.
Yeah, because like with the first one being a cash grab, that one it just reeked of, oh shit, Harold Ramis is dead. Now we can finally make this.
Yeah, it was really kind of.
You know what I mean? Here, we'll put a statue of him in the movie just so people know that we like it.
Put him in the ground. Did you ever watch like the Evil Dead 2013 remake? It's like we just killed them and now we're gonna bury them back up again.
Yeah. So He drives him home, and they walk in, and Rudd sees, and everybody calls him the Dirt Farmer.
I do like that nickname.
Yeah.
I like spores, molds, and fungus. He's just out there like they don't understand what he's really working on.
Yeah,
So,
which also he has the collection of it. You see his collection of spores, mold, and fungus when she walks through his little his torture chamber.
If you look closely, there might be a woman's ear in there.
Probably so. So they walk in there and they find a Aztec death whistle, which I think is kind of cool. But I wonder if they actually do make that noise. I wonder if that is an authentic noise that they use for the death whistle, because they do say that it's supposed to have the most horrifying screech when you blow through it.
Yeah, I wonder, because I doubt that the sound we actually hear, like, I bet it was enhanced, but I can't be for sure, you know?
Yeah.
I do like that. I like Egon's little collection of weird shit.
Yeah.
That, again, are probably from other busting adventures that were more minor, or again, just from his own weird fascinations.
It's his very own Warren Museum.
Yeah, I keep making him out to be like this Emmett Brown, but it's like there's almost kind of like an Indiana Jones to him as well, where it's like he has his trinkets and his collection.
Paranormal Indiana Jones. Then like the little podcast kid is like, the mom's like, what the hell is that? He's like, dude, this thing is so cool. Can I have it? She's like, yes. Don't blow it again. So he got an authentic Aztec death whistle, which is probably worth a ton of money.
Yeah, he should probably talk about it on his podcast because his name is Podcast.
Yeah. And I guess we get a little more flirtation from Tommy Doyle and Mom. And
so first he's Tommy Jarvis, now he's Tommy Doyle. Well, it actually was Tommy Doyle, so you're right.
Yeah.
They fucking should have called him Tommy Doyle in this.
Yeah, that would have been a little on the nose.
Sorry, Lacey, but they should have.
And God, what happens next? I guess this is where she's like about to be going on a date with him, and he's like, the kid's like, he's digging at your mom, man, and she's just like, yeah, I'm vomiting inside.
Which podcast would be the one to say that? Like, he is the new Ray Stantz of the group, but because he is like of the modern age, you know what I mean, and he's a kid, there's none of that impulse control.
Yeah, there's no filter on him because he's a child.
I do want to see this kid in other stuff because, like, I love the character design. I love the way they did his hair. His personality. Like, he is a junior Ghostbuster. Like, we're now sitting in the movie theater. I have to accept that there's kid Ghostbusters. This is probably the best we'll get out of junior Ghostbusters. But again, like, that name is so fucking... It ruins everything, really.
I know, man. I don't understand why. Oh, God.
I want to say something positive, like you cringe when you say it. His name is Podcast.
Yeah, I hate that we have to keep coming back to hating on that nickname, but it is that bad.
I want to feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I know I have a tendency to repeat myself, but I'm also like, I can't, because every time you're like, why? You're like, it's...
I can't get past it. It's so hard.
I hit the mark on that one.
It's like calling anybody by the thing they do. It's like calling her Experiment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with an X.
Yeah, it's like calling Mom Broke.
Yeah.
calling Finn Mechanic.
Calling Ray Buster.
Yeah, exactly. It's so stupid. That would be like, calling me, Music. What up, Music? It's stupid.
Can you imagine if you were trying to, like, make music and you're like, yo, I am music?
Right? Seriously.
Now listen to Bitch Slap Me Jesus.
Right, yeah, listen. And so what does happen next? Is this, do we cut straight to the dates? And so we have, okay, well, all right. So I'm gonna say we go to her discovering Egon's torture chamber. And he's got all kinds of shit down there. Like Ghost Egon is like leading her around, and she gets down there and she sees all this stuff and the stuff he's working on and his cool little model of the barn and shit. And you see these filthy jumpsuits hanging up.
This is where the fan service goes too far for me, and I made sure to make a specific note of it. Is that it's like I love. You remember this from the time we recorded the podcast, but also people who know me know I fucking love the original Ghostbusters. I know basically like every line. I know every scene. I love it. But even to me, I was like, the fucking Crunch Bar? The Crunch Bar. Even for me, that scene in the original was a throwaway, and that is like the only reason it's funny is like the what the fuck value of like, why is Ray smiling at the Crunch Bar, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he left that dirty, like it looked empty, so it's like you're telling me he ate it, and then just like, and I leave shit in my pockets for shit that, for time longer than it needs to be. Listen, I'm not acting like I'm Mr. Cleanly over here, but for 30, like nearly 40 years.
It's still good. It's so delicious.
Punch in there.
But yeah, so she sees all this cool stuff, and I don't know what she takes out of there. I guess this is where she finds the proton pack.
Yeah,
because it's missing some pieces.
Because the initial thing that like launches this sort of mystery box off is the trap. The trap is the first key, and they tested it out already, and now they got the further equipment. And you know that this is a legacy sequel once we finally get to the proton pack scene. I'm pretty sure Red Letter Media pointed to that, where it's like you got those cool ass shots of the proton pack from different angles, where it's like the whole comedy of the proton pack is it's like this big bulky piece of shit.
Yeah, it's this bulky piece of shit that could probably destroy the city if not used properly.
It's a walking nuclear accelerator.
Yeah, and so she's like it's missing something, and Ghost Egon is like, here's the thing it needs. And she's like, okay, what about needle nose pliers? And it's like, here's your needle nose pliers. She's totally cool with, and she don't know it's Ghost Egon, you know, at this point. She's just like, this is just a ghost telling me to do shit.
Her logic skills. She's like, this thing is helping me out, so I'll keep allowing it to.
Yeah, it's pretty out there, and so I believe while this is happening, Finn, let's say he's working on the vehicle. He's like, all right, you know. And so my thing about this is, okay, and they did this. This also happened in Jurassic World, and I'm a big fan of the Jurassic World movies. I like those a lot. So what did he really do to get this thing running again? We never saw him do a thing except for have the hood up and then go to crank it up. And
it should have got to him like just hitting the fucking side of it with a hammer.
Yeah, and it's not working. He's trying to get it to crank, and he's trying to get it to turn over, and then Ghost Egon lays a little wire down, and it gets it running again. And I'm like, okay, all right, first...
So Shepard's useless, basically.
Yeah, so I'm like, you didn't fix this car. So my thing is how long has this car been sitting here? Obviously, it's been sitting there for a few decades, as it looks. And these tires have to be dry rotted. I am sure they should not have air in them anymore. I'm sure if there is gas in this car, this gas is old and useless. I'm sure this car needs oil. Say what?
I said that gas is from the Reagan era. It's not running that car.
Exactly. Like this, I'm sure this car needs oil. There's a lot more that needs to be done to get this car running. And they did that in Jurassic World, where the two kids are running around and they see all the old Jurassic Park shit, and they fucking get the Jeep running. And I have the same problem with that. I'm like, this is a part of the park that is closed off. Nobody goes here. This shit has been sitting here for 30 years. How is it still working?
You know when they do, because they eventually will. I'm not going to even act like if they do. When they eventually do the new Back to the Future, it's going to be the same thing with the DeLorean.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
Even though Part 3 ended with the end, it was to be continued, to be concluded, and then the end.
Yeah.
And then the video game was a nice little, if you wanted a 4, like...
Yeah, those were actually some fun little video games. Was Telltale made those?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were pretty fun.
So that's what I'm saying, the video games, and again, the Ghostbusters video game rocked. I am not a big gamer. I don't, complete many games. I don't go back and replay a lot of games, but fucking the Ghostbusters video game, I've replayed, probably more times than I can count on my own hand. It's that, and it's not even that the story was that fantastic, but it just felt genuine. It was written by Dan and Harold. It had all the voices. It was the closest thing to a reunion we were going to get. There was no Dana Barrett and no Louis Tully, but it kind of filled the same purpose. I call it the Star Wars method, because the original Star Wars trilogy is we do the Death Star, we do something different, and then we go back to the Death Star. This one was we do Gozer, we do something different, we go back to Gozer. The video game ends this. Same thing with the Dark Knight trilogy. It's we do the League of Shadows, then we do the Joker, now we're back to the League of Shadows. You know what I mean?
They do that in the original Spider-Man trilogy as well. We do where they cut back to it actually being Sandman who accidentally killed Uncle Ben and stuff like it.
Yeah.
A lot of them do a lot of threes do like to go back to the first one.
Because the 3 is meant to wrap up the loose ends, but like I said, this isn't Ghostbusters 3. So going back, I know even in previous podcasts, Red Letter Media is one of my favorite YouTube channels, and I tend to agree with a lot of their points.
Yeah.
But there's another channel, OCP Communications, where I like a blend of their ideas, where I like Red Letter Media's idea of having it be draw it out more, make it a mini-series. If we're really going to go this tone with it, let's really make it its own thing. But I also agree with OCP Communications as Shandor should have been the main antagonist. And if we're doing this thing that we're going back to Gozer, have her re-entry into this world be the looming threat that we have to stop. Don't let it get to that point. That way we still have a new antagonist. Because we have J.K. Simmons playing Evo Shandor. That is a cool fucking casting choice. I know he gets cast in everything, but it's he was in Juno. Jason Reitman is cool with J.K. Simmons.
Was that J.K. Simmons?
It was.
I had no idea.
So, and he gets fucking torn in half like a piece of tissue, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that went nowhere, absolutely nowhere.
It would have been cool if he was the main threat, and then Red Letter Media threw in that it's they're a mining town. It's they should have taken on ghost miners. We see a zombie miner. It's imagine an army of those fucks.
Yeah. So, he gets the ecto cooler running, and...
The ecto cooler?
Yeah, my bad.
The
ecto one.
This thing's running on high C.
Yeah. So he gets the ecto one running, and he's just driving through the field. So it cuts to Podcast and Phoebe, and they're playing with the proton pack, and they just completely obliterate the bottle she was aiming at. And
this leads to a really good line. I love where it's did I get it? It's get it? You destroyed it. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And
but, the Finn Wolfhard driving scene. Number one, going back to the John Hughes comparison, very Ferris Bueller, where there's the shot of it. Whoa, we're going over the hill, and the music's gonna stop for a second. But I also have to shout out, they used a great Buzzcocks tune for that moment.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Buzzcocks. I was right on, because we've had a lot of 1950s kind of music, and then they throw in an old school kind of punk track or some shit. I was right on with that.
Not that soundtracks really make the difference with movies, but it's when they do choose a good tune, I was because it, especially if we're talking Buzzcocks, kudos to them for not doing ever fallen in love with someone, ever fallen in love,
Yeah, that was a cool out of left field choice for a song that I was not expecting. And
yeah.
So they get the proton pack and they're like, oh shit, there's a ghost here in the barn. And this is something I like, alright? I was expecting this ghost to be Slimer. I think everyone was expecting.
They did not use Slimer.
Say what?
I said, thank Christ they did not use Slimer. Even though this ghost is a Slimer replacement, his name is Muncher.
Yeah, basically he's like a Slimer relative, you know, like, I'm sure there are different versions, you know, different styles of this same ghost in this universe. So I like that idea, that it's kind of like branching out the different kind of ghosts it could be. But I think me and I think everybody else in the world were expecting this to be Slimer, and instead it's like this six-armed ghost and he's chewing on the metal and stuff. And I was like, okay, that was cool. That was like the first time the movie actually, because I didn't have many expectations, but that was one where I was like, yeah, it's gonna be Slimer. Here he comes. But no, it wasn't Slimer.
Something new.
Yeah, exactly. It was something new. I was like, okay, that's really cool. But then
it's an offshoot of Slimer, but still, I'll take that. And you want to know something else that's very interesting about Muncher? He is voiced by Josh Gad, who played Snowman in Frozen. And if we go back to that, like, I'm not trying to link my YouTube channel. But in my Ghostbusters fan film idea video, not only did I suggest Paul Rudd as a member of the team, but I suggested Josh Gad. So we have two cast members who I've suggested being placed in roles I did not expect them to be placed in.
Maybe the producers saw your video.
I hope not. Where's my goddamn royalties?
And so I liked that. I was like, that's cool, you know. But then I started looking at him, I told Stas, I was like, this ghost looks a whole lot like Fatso from the Casper movie, 1995.
Yeah.
Which, weirdly enough, features a cameo of Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz talking about, who are you going to call? Someone else.
It is canon. That was during the time where Egon left and he was off on his own. That is in Bro, thank you. Idea. That is in Ghostbusters 3 comic series coming soon.
Boom! Seriously. We could, yes.
That's
Casper, 1995, is an in-between movie. Casper is in the Ghostbusters universe.
He doesn't have time to shave anymore. He's down to his, Peter's already looking for new jobs, you know?
Yeah. Ray Stantz is the last one to hold on to the Ghostbusters legacy, and this is like his last bit. He's like, fuck this. I'm the only one left, and I cannot handle these ghosts on my own. That's why he says...
That's the last one. You're right. And that makes sense now, because everybody flipped their shit over Egon Spengler can burn in hell. But it's like, no, he's fucking pissed. He's like, did you see those guys? They were like fucking Oprah Winfrey on hiatus, one of the ghosts says in that movie. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
So, boom, a missing link to the Ghostbusters franchise.
You're a fucking genius.
So yeah, Ray at this point in Casper is the last Ghostbuster, trying to keep it going, realizes he can't do it on his own anymore because they need everyone. They need to be able to have at least 4 streams of proton packs, and everyone else has gone their separate ways. This is all he has left. He's like, fuck it, man. And that's why he says, call someone else. Basically meaning Ghostbusters is dead. It's 1995. It's been, roughly 6 years since Ghostbusters 2?
You know what he said? He said, blow it out your ass, Eric Idle. We are done.
Yeah. Boom, y'all. Boom.
The Ghostbusters are over. I'm shutting down even the national sex. Because that's another thing, too, is I probably mentioned it on previous podcasts, but there was I've probably gone on the same tangent, but there were these 2 fan films made about the Denver Ghostbusters that are, of course, a new team of characters, but one of them was Egon's nephew named Ed. That's the Denver team is the first in Ghostbusters trying to offshoot into a different state. And, of course, it's fanficky. The first fan film was Freddy versus Ghostbusters. So now you're incorporating Nightmare on Elm Street. But the second one was just called Return of the Ghostbusters, and it was more so an original plot. But Harold Ramis had seen those fan films. He had responded to the filmmakers, and even though his word isn't like the studio's, word on the whole thing, he basically was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, this stuff is awesome. Like, this is canon. And in the Ghostbusters video game, when you're walking through the firehouse, there's a little child, because since this one takes place in the 90s, the fan films take place in the 2000s, there's a childish drawing of a Ghostbuster on the wall, and it says, "To Uncle Egon from Ed." So that's all completely erased as well now.
But let me take a piss real quick.
Yeah, after that deserves a piss break. Alright, awesome. That's basically what I'm getting at with that tangent is I feel like Egon would make for a better uncle character than a dad or a grandfather.
Yeah, because like Egon would not be the one to settle down. Like, work is his life, research is his life, which also makes sense for he would leave. He would be too obsessed with the crap going on in his head, and he's like, fuck my wife, fuck my kid.
That's exactly what he did.
I've got to deal with this shit. So it makes sense. Like I said, based on the way we evaluated him in the first movie, in the second movie, it would make sense for him to be this way. So at this point, they're trying to capture the ghost, and I think what happens here is this where, like, I don't know, Finn shows up in the car and they all hop in the car. Is that what happens?
That is exactly what happens. The two scenes parallel, and there is kind of like a funny thing where it's like, you have a friend, you have a car.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he doesn't have a license. But this is my favorite sequence in the whole movie, and I don't even think it's like a mindless action scene. I like that you have that Sedgwick Hotel music playing as they're zooming down the street and, chasing after Muncher. Muncher shooting fucking, like, bullets out of his mouth. I don't know how Phoebe doesn't get hit hanging out of the car, but I'm willing to not think about it because the scene is so awesome.
Yeah, it is a cool action scene. It's probably one of the better ones in the movie. I would
say this is like the peak of the movie. Like, this is the middle point, and then from here, like, because I would say, despite what we've been talking about, especially watching it again, I think the first half is at least intriguing enough to keep me interested.
Yeah,
it's incorporating the old and the new.
It's a lot of build-up, man. It's a whole lot of build-up.
After this sequence is when it starts to go downhill, because it's like the build-up is starting to be paid off, but the payoff is more so, now let's go by the numbers. Now let's go back to Ghostbusters 1.
Yeah.
This is at least a fresh, new Ghostbusting scene. And again, you just kind of have to get over that it's kid Ghostbusters, and it's like, it's a cool fucking scene.
Yeah, and they are destroying this town.
And meanwhile, the mom's on the date talking about, I wish Phoebe would, like, get into a little more trouble, meaning, like, I wish, like, she would act more like normal girls her age, but then she gets in trouble, and she's like, fuck you.
Yeah. So, they destroy the town, and, this is how you do a big-budget action scene in Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters 2016 is how you don't do big-budget Ghostbuster action scenes.
What are you talking about, dude? Ghosts be up on her wall.
Yeah.
They must be looking tall.
Get Fallout Boy and Missy Elliott. Call them. A new Ghostbusters is out.
Yeah, exactly. They were probably very upset they didn't get called for this one, but I don't think their track would have worked in this tone. But somebody could edit it during this scene.
Yeah. So they...
I do like this sequence, and like you said, it's kind of like the best we can get out of a big budget.
Because it's still pretty small scale. Like, it's still pretty small scale. I like it because it shows the whole town. Like, it shows you how small this town is.
Exactly. I love that. And then one other thing I want to point out is even though the mom isn't big on the science and is trying to forget about it.
Hey, hold on 2 seconds. Hold on 2 seconds. Sorry about that, folks. I had a phone call and
Important negotiations.
Yeah. So where were we at? What were you saying before I interrupted you?
One of the things is that I know that the mom is trying to not think about Egon, not even pay attention to the ghost busting shit, but it's clear that she's aware of what he did.
Yeah.
That she purposefully hid it from the kids, and when she sees the ghost busting equipment at the jailhouse, you know, I just kind of feel like, didn't she just have a ghost fly by her in the restaurant?
Yeah, but like they didn't really. It was so fast they didn't really see what it was.
That's what it had to be, right? That it's like they probably more felt it, and it was more so for the audience to see, you know?
Yeah.
But that kind of lingered in my head that it's like, still though, some weird shit's been going on since she got here. It's like, I get that you're mad and all, but you did just say you wished Phoebe got out there more, and it's like, yeah, it's weird, but she's incorporating her weird science shit into her social life.
Yeah.
If you call it that.
I do like that we see some different gadgets. We see some different stuff. So we have a trap that's on wheels, and it's remote controlled. That was kind of cool, and that it pops out from under the car. It
feels like something that Podcast just put together from the old trap, just like thinking of like, maybe it was something that they had, but in my head canon, I'm thinking like he just screwed the old trap onto the wheels. That was an RC car of his.
Yeah. So that was cool, because like, this movie added some new gadgets, but it didn't go overboard. Whereas the 2016 Ghostbusters, I mean, they had pistol things and shit.
Dual wielding, you know?
Yeah, they got stupid with a lot of that shit. But this one, everything kind of felt more real, based on the characters' money and resources.
One, and also that it's like the Ghostbusters just started in the 2016 one, and then all of a sudden, like, within a couple of months, they have all these things, like an arsenal, basically.
Yeah.
And some of them they are just grinding up ghosts with. Like, they're not even busting. Like, some of them they are just, like, killing souls with.
Yeah, they're not trapping them in anything.
They're like, we're not busting anymore, we're ghost killers.
Yeah, they're blowing heads off and shit.
But, she literally does say hello to my little friend. I was about to say that as a joke. But one credit I will give the 2016 one over this one is that even as bad as the comedy is, I keep mentioning that, like, my big nitpick with this is the tonal shifting. At least the Ghostbusters 2016 was solely, like, one thing, and it was really trying to aim for goofy comedy. Ghostbusters, by spirit, is more of, like, a dry comedy, but I can at least give them kudos that it's, like, they had their tone set. Like, whether you agree with it or not, it's like, this is the shit we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, whereas with this, you can go back to my previous comments that we've been talking about.
Yeah. So they capture the ghost and they stop right at the bridge, and then boom, busted. Police come. They busted a ghost, and then they got busted.
Yeah, I was about to say, you better catch that pun there.
And so now they're in jail, and it was kind of funny. The kid was like, "Man, I'm just excited we're in jail," and they're sitting there talking, and then boom, here comes Lucky. God, what a name. And he's like, "Whoa, you're in jail too?" And she's like, "Yeah, man." And then she walks out, and she's like, "Actually, Sheriff's my dad." And this is it's a bit of a filler piece, because it's like, I don't know, did we really need to? But actually, before I believe before all this ghost busting shit, that's when Finn is with girlfriend and their friends on top of the mountain, and that's when the mountain does its crazy bullshit and scares everybody. Am I right?
Yes, you're correct. But the whole thing with the cop as my dad, is, we just need her to be in that setting at the time of that scene.
Yeah, she's just waiting on her ride home. And it's like, how about this town is 4 square miles. You can walk home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they're trying to sell what a small town it is. That's like, oh, this person's my dad. We all know each other. You know what I mean? Which is, like, pretty common for small towns. But it's like,
Yeah, how about this small town probably hasn't seen a murder in 80 years. Like, it's that small. Like,
your dad is like a cop, let alone like the sheriff. It's like, if somebody's trying to fuck with you, like, they'll find you.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. It's just there for her to be there at the jail. And to corroborate his story, because he's telling them, I saw this crazy stuff at the mountain, and she's like, what, the things he says is true, I was there.
Yeah, and of course she didn't bring it up to her dad before, because,
she could have helped him out. And
I also feel like it may not just flat out be a callback, but you have them in jail. It's kind of like, each Ghostbusters movie, you have to have the scene where they're being locked up.
Yeah. And so, boom, she's like, don't I get a phone call, right? And I don't know who the actor is that's playing the sheriff. And the only other thing I think of that he is in is he plays, I believe he's playing RZA and Divine's dad on the Wu-Tang American Saga series. I don't know if he's actually their dad or if he's like their mom's like on and off boyfriend guy. I can't remember, but yeah, he's on there. But he's almost like what's the name of the actor who just passed away who played Wesker, who was in Fringe, that black dude.
Lance Reddick.
Yes, this guy is almost like Dollar Store Lance Reddick.
Yeah, no, I definitely recognized his face, but I couldn't place a name to it.
It's almost like if Lance Reddick and Dave Chappelle were like put together.
I could see it. I definitely could.
But so
it's distracting me from this Dan Aykroyd sequence because I wrote a note that it is literally phoned in, this first cameo.
It is phoned in. So she's like, don't I get a phone call? And he's like, yeah. And then he hands her the phone. Who you gonna call? I was like, oh, there it is.
There it is.
They said it.
I ain't no ghost, but they had to do it.
They said it. So she calls, boom. Ray stands and he's got the red phone. And what's funny is the fact that he's still got the red phone, still has the damn same number. But when she's talking to him, he's ready to hang up. He's ready to be like, fuck this. But he is clearly the only one still holding on to this Ghostbuster shit. So why are you ready to hang up?
He's hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt. But she's...
People really made a big deal out of, like, Egon Spengler can burn in hell. Ray would never say that. And I agree that he wouldn't, but they linger on his face, and you could tell that it's like he's not meaning what he's saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like...
He hears that he's dead. Like, there's genuine, like, he's hurt by what he did, but he still cared about him.
Yeah, he's like, he's upset that he's dead, that he's lost his chance to make amends. It's one of them things where it's like, you were all friends, somebody made a mistake, but everybody's too stubborn to say I'm sorry first.
Basically, especially amongst these guys, you know what I mean?
And nothing happens until it's too late. And so
they needed to sprinkle the mood slime on each other and make up.
Yeah. And too bad they used it all on the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, dude, we reunited the whole city of New York, and even that wasn't enough. Egon still went nutso.
So he's talking, she's like, all this stuff is happening.
They used up all the slime, and he lost his real fuck buddy.
Yeah. But all this stuff is happening, she's telling him, da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, so we, Winston's doing this now, Venkman's doing this now.
The fact that Venkman went back to academics is pretty surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. So he can still be a sleazeball.
Venkman should be like selling shoes or something like that. Like I don't know. Like he should be like trying to scam people with Bitcoin.
Yeah, he's back. He's back at school trying to fuck teenagers.
Which, wait until the after credit scene. He gets his comeuppance for that.
Yeah, a good old comeuppance. That was a cute little scene.
Before we get to that.
Yeah, and so he mentions the line, "We lost the firehouse." We went from like X amount of phone calls a week to one. There were no more ghosts to bust. Basically, we did our jobs too good.
So yeah, Ghostbusters 2 still happened because that's like when the nacho fries are back. You know what I mean? It was a novelty to have them back.
Yeah.
And there was actually a separate paranormal event happening. That actually makes Ghostbusters 2 more special in my heart. That it's
what even would be great?
Ghost shit. Ego's just that badass.
If they could go a little deeper and people quit taking Ghostbusters seriously because of shit like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures,
they had their own show for a little bit, and it only lasted like a couple of episodes. Like it wasn't even a one-season deal. Like after episode 2, like it was like demo reel. People are like, "This sucks."
Yeah, so to go a little deeper on what made people not care about Ghostbusters anymore, because it's like Ghostbusters in this universe is the real deal, but then you have people like Ghost Adventures, and they're making the shit seem silly, and everybody's like,
It might have been, I don't know if this was an idea I came up with, or it might have been Red Cow Arcade's podcast that did it, but like the best thing for a Ghostbusters sequel, especially if you want to do it different, make it a mockumentary. Ghostbusters, where are they now?
yeah, that would be pretty funny.
There was a sketch where they did that with like the kids who visited Willy Wonka's chocolate factory that was made like years ago, and it's like that was a great parody idea. It's like Ghostbusters, especially in this world where it's like it's goofy but still grounded in reality, which is what makes all this crazy shit even funnier. Like make a documentary where you are selling it like the Ghostbusters are real, and you don't need to have the old actors do a lot of action because they could be in their characters as old men reminiscing on how this just didn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So they're there and they get bailed out pretty easy. In fact, they are let off. Really, they destroyed the town.
I mean, they are kids, but also at the same time, it's like, yeah, that is terrorism.
Yeah, property got destroyed. She even pulled the damn weapon out on the damn sheriff.
Oh yeah, and that's when the mom really gets pissed. That's where now my question with the mom, I was like, yeah, get out of here. She's very passionate. I'm sorry.
Because it's like, all right, these kids just destroyed the town. Like somebody's got to pay for that.
And they don't got any money.
Exactly. If the Russian can't get money out of her, who can?
Somebody literally says it's like, oh, you're the daughter of dirt farmer.
Yeah. He's like, he always bought some weird shit. Yeah, that little hardware store scene, that was pretty good too earlier on in the movie.
Yeah, that was filler, but it was at least like fun filler. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was filler, but it explained the town. Like the whole town knows the weird shit Egon was doing up there.
Yeah, he had a presence among them.
Yeah. And I like this idea of Egon being this mad scientist on the hill of this little town, and everybody's afraid to go up there like he's this Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's got his little castle.
Yeah, people keep disappearing, and nobody sees them.
All I see is a bolt of lightning underneath that Spangler house.
The old Spangler house, up on the hill.
You don't want to be going to that old Spangler house.
Nobody goes there anymore. You get Fred, God, what's his name? Fucking Herman Munster.
Fred Gwynn, yeah.
Fred Gwynn, you don't want to go up that road. That's the old Spangler house. You don't want to go up there. So they get out of there, and I'm guessing this is where Paul Rudd goes to Walmart. This is the biggest.
In my notes, I wrote in all caps, pointless empty Walmart with pointless empty Baskin Robbins and pointless empty Marshmallow Men with no setup other than pointless empty nostalgia.
This is the most product placement ass shit.
Paul Rudd cannot avoid the Baskin Robbins product placement in particular because the Ant-Man movies are full of them to the point where it became a running joke. His character is a criminal, and when he gets out of jail, all he can get is a Baskin Robbins job. And then even after he becomes a superhero in the Ant-Man movies, they keep going back to Baskin Robbins. And sure, it's cute and all, but it's like we all know that it's like brought to you by Baskin Robbins. You know what I mean?
Here's something I'm going to say, though, alright? The Baskin Robbins, especially on the original Ant-Man, if you remember, Edgar Wright was supposed to do Ant-Man.
It was going to be Cornetto. He was going to be serving out Cornetto.
Right, see what I'm saying? And maybe that is a reference to Cornetto from Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy.
Maybe, and then the last minute, like, because Edgar Wright has a producing credit on that, but I even joked with my friends about it recently that it's like he gave probably no money to that. They were just like, please don't hate us, Edgar Wright.
But maybe there's...
like, fuck this, I'm going to do a documentary about the Sparks Brothers.
But yeah, so he's in this damn Walmart, and there's nobody there. It is the most empty-ass Walmart in history. I don't care what time of night this is. Even when Walmarts used to be 24 hours, there'd be enough people in there to see this giant-ass Zool dog running around fucking shit up.
Either that Zool killed everybody, which there could have at least been, it would have been dark, but it would have been fun if there was a visual gag of, like, blood smears in the back that fucking Paul Rudd's not seeing, you know?
Yeah. Kind of like...
They didn't think it that through. They just knew they had to get their product placement in, and this would be the scene to do it.
Yeah, let's just do it all right here in one scene.
Come on, you're not even going to do the gag of, like, welcome to Walmart, and the dogs pass by. Oh, shit.
And so, like, he's walking around, and then, alright, so he sees the little Stay Puft Marshmallow dudes. Now, that's... this is only there to be fan service. This is only there to be a nostalgia bit. Because the only reason we had the giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is because he was going to appear in any form that they wanted. And so he
Ray
thought...
imagined it based on our established trauma from camp.
Yeah. So...
And Paul Rudd's not thinking about it. I get that Zool is possessing it and Stay Puft is a brand. I wouldn't have minded if the marshmallows came to life, but they are fully formed marshmallow men. It would have been... I could have done with the callback if, like, maybe it was like marshmallows with teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, this is every marshmallow in the packages coming to life. But it was a fun little cute scene there. I liked watching them just murder each other happily.
That was a pretty nice twist to it. That's like, I like the one guy putting himself in the bed of s'mores, but it's like, but again, you know why it was put in there, and that's ultimately what the problem is.
Yeah, like it was fun, it was cute.
They did Baby Peanut. They're doing all the the baby shit was very It is still very popular. You know what I mean? They did the fucking Austin Powers Super Bowl commercial where you can't get Vern Troyer back, so you got Baby Evil.
Yeah. And so then the Zool dog comes and he's running from the Zool dog, and so he goes out to the parking lot. There's his car and two other cars out in the parking lot. So there's like 2 employees in this Walmart sleeping somewhere.
I do appreciate that the Zool dog is like not only a practical effect, but they also showed it in like full Walmart lighting. But it's immediately nullified by the fact that when it runs, it looks like a CG turd.
Yeah, like I do appreciate. There's a ton of practical effects in this movie that I highly appreciate, especially the fact that the ghosts are more muted colors, kind of like the original. Whereas in that 2016, they were very bright colors and vibrant colors, which I did like. I do like bright, oversaturated colors, but it just. I don't know, it was just a little too much in that Ghostbusters movie. But I do like that this kind of goes back to the... Even
the regular scenes in 2016 Ghostbusters were like, the lighting was overexposed and it looked pretty, like they needed to put it through Adobe Premiere one more time.
Yeah, just real sterile.
Yeah, and overblown though, so it kind of was like this weird, like starbursty color.
Yeah, a Skittles commercial with Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly. Taste the rainbow.
And so what I like is his windshield is still busted, and I like that he runs into his car through the windshield.
And there is that visual gag of like he sits on the car and the fucking tire fucking bursts, and there's a little as he's sitting there.
Yeah. Did you tell him it came out of the front?
Yeah, that's all that scene needed. And this is again where it's like I didn't mind, like stupid name and all, I didn't mind Gary Gruberson, but it's like here's now where it's like, oh, this is all we really needed him for is he's gonna bang the mom and they're gonna summon Gozer.
Yeah, they're gonna be
He's not
gatekeeper.
gonna the Busters at the end.
Yeah.
Because he turns back in. Even this is another thing that fucked with me is that even after they changed him back, not the mom, but he turns back into a dog one more time.
Yeah, he does.
Just because fuck Gary.
So Zool Dog runs in there and gets him, and it cuts to what does it cut to after this?
This is also where we coincide with the mom. But let me refer to my notes just to be sure.
Is this where she finds the secret killing basement?
She does, and then the Zool comes out. Ah, jump scare, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, so she goes down there and sees all the weird shit, but she sees what her daughter didn't see. A massive, I guess Egon shows, shines the light on the old picture, and then it's like, boom, a lot of creepy photos taped to a wall of his granddaughter in all sorts of different ages and stuff. Like it's almost. It's 100% Egon.
That mixed with the creepy line that Paul Rudd said before during the date of like, oh yeah, maybe she'll just get into like pole dancing. You know, I mean, it's like, what is this ghost wanting to do with baby?
You know what? Speaking of pole dancing, while that scene is going on, she slides down the pole.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Into the basement.
I didn't know this was a Bryan Singer movie.
Oh my god. But yeah, so that's another thing is like, do we necessarily need the pole going into the secret basement? Because, yeah, they had the fireman's pole in Ghostbusters because their headquarters was a firehouse.
House. You gotta try this pole. Wow, you're right. Call back again. Unnecessary callback.
Yeah, like there was no reason for there to be a pole there. Other than, hey, remember this?
Wow, I didn't even notice that. God damn it. But
So, yeah.
another note that I left is that so Zool gets into them and they head back to the house and she's immediately in Zool mode, and my note said, I get that this is Zool and the actress is trying, but Sigourney Weaver literally got her job for the first Ghostbusters by jumping up on the desk and acting like a dog. You can't top that.
Yeah.
With the fast breathing and shit like that. Like, she is trying, but it's like, so, especially for something so awkward, such a weird demand for a role, Sigourney was like one of the few people who could pull that weird shit off.
Yeah. So boom, Zoldog possesses mom, and I would call this a slight. What's weird is, so she's possessed, and it's very Evil Dead-y.
Yes. I've been thinking a lot about Evil Dead because speaking of like soft reboots, not necessarily legacy sequel, but we just had Evil Dead Rise.
Exactly, and the trailers for Evil Dead Rise, this whole little Mom Zool scene reminded me of the stuff I would see in the trailer for Evil Dead Rise. And
we should definitely talk about Evil Dead Rise at a future date because I think it has a lot of interesting talking points. I would love to hear what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, when you check it out, let me know. I agree with you. That's what I thought of as well. But of course, they have there is no mom, only Zool.
Yeah, we had to get that line. and then she like busts through the window.
No, and she also tries to hit on podcasts. So again, Ryan Singer, get off the set.
Yeah. So
she's like, "Are you the key master?" And they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. And so she busts through the window, right, and gets to the mountain, and Paul Rudd is there, and this is a little too silly.
I like your eyes.
Yeah, like, he kind of gets up all goofy and shit, and he's like, "Oh, I like your eyes." And she says something, and he's like, "Oh, thanks." And,
the joke is that she responds with just animalistic growling, and he understands what she's saying, kind of like a Chewbacca thing. But what we really needed, because it really is a Paul Rudd moment, it is kind of funny seeing him with the red eyes acting like Paul Rudd. Kind of like Rick Moranis with the red eyes acting like Rick Moranis. But Paul Rudd as in a Ghostbusters movie needed to be, like I said, kind of the comic relief Venkman character, and you honestly could have had him be the schlubby, wet hot American summer persona in a Ghostbusters jumpsuit.
Yeah. So what happens next, alright? So basically they bang, so they can...
What happens next? Travis, have you seen Ghostbusters? That's what happens.
Say what?
I said, have you seen Ghostbusters? That's what happens next.
Yeah, basically. Except for anybody having a date rape drug to subdue them.
That's true. Well, Bill Murray's not here yet, so give it time. But, yeah, so we basically go paint by numbers in this small town, but in between that, Gozer rises, and that's where we have Shandor comes out of his grave, because when
we skipped a bit. We skipped a bit where they go into the mine.
Yeah, they established that they explored the mine, and they established that Shandor was there. You mentioned that the calendar was there, so we already talked about that.
Yeah, and so Shandor's there as a, and Shandor's there in this glass coffin, and then you find out that what's causing all the earthquakes is this giant proton pack, basically, and anytime all the ghosts try to come up through the hole, it shoots them back down in it.
And that's what we opened up on at the beginning. I wrote a note that it's a very common trope now with modern movies with the advent of CGI that we have the blue beam shooting up into the stormy sky, but this time it's a proton beam.
Yeah. I was gonna say sky beam, but it wasn't. At least it had a
It
purpose.
was not the worst sky beam in modern movies.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool that it's like you open up on the sound of like, it sounds like a proton pack starting, and then it's like a volcano. It shoots out of the sky.
But yeah, you're right. So at this point, Gozer comes back, and Xandor, is that his name? Shandor. He wakes up and he's like, "Oh yes, we can rule the world together." And then boom, ripped in half. Probably the most violent death I've ever seen in Ghostbusters. Probably after Egon, the second death in a Ghostbusters movie.
Definitely the most violent.
Not counting dead Bill Murray in Ghostbusters 2016. Not counting that. But
you don't see him die. You don't see him splatter on the ground. But you know it was probably brutal. There was a big cleanup job just to get all the Murray off the ground. But I really wish that Shandor would have risen from his tomb earlier and would have been the main antagonist. Because another point that I have is that Ghostbusters, Gozer comes back, and she's more or less the exact same look as she was in Ghostbusters 1, when the whole thing, you want to talk about progressive, like Lucky said, like, is it a man or a woman? It could be whatever it wants. And they throw in a line where it's like, oh, maybe she remembers. But it's like, even still, it's like, so this is just what you like being, then. And she's played by Olivia Wilde for no reason. I feel like, you could have gotten any actress, probably somebody who closer resembles the actress who plays Gozer, but it's Olivia Wilde.
Yeah. I think they did a good job making her look like the original. So yeah, at this point, They destroy the little proton shit, keeping them in there.
Even if we're going with Gozer, though, I hate to cut you off, but I really am thinking about this. Even with Gozer, though, it's like, why not? Like, if we're really going to still have it be Gozer, why not have it come back in a completely different form?
That would make more sense, you know, especially when they said it's neither a she or a him.
Just to keep it fresh, you know what I mean? Because, again, that's another thing I wrote in the notes. It's like, I really am not trying to poo-poo this movie. You know what I mean? I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it's like, let's at least do something with it then.
Yeah,
you know,
because the only reason it looks like Gozer,
you know,
the only reason it looks like normal Gozer is for nostalgia, which I'll trade that for not having Slimer in the movie. You know what I mean?
Fair enough, but like you already showed us that you are willing to forego some of the previous traditions, so it's like, yeah, and they did give her like these. It's not like it's the exact same design. She has like updated like spikes on the side and stuff like that. She's able to uncross the streams, which is crazy. But of course, you know, probably would learn from previous experiences.
Yeah,
but
so
I would have preferred to see like maybe a different Gozer design, but that's just me.
Yeah, and so at this point, it's just like in the first movie. Boom! All the ghosts take over the town, and this is where I was saying earlier was I think it under-delivered. I actually would have liked to see more ghosts doing shit in the town. Like in the first one, you got a good long montage of ghosts fucking around with people. And this one,
you needed more of an "I believe it's magic" moment, because even Ghostbusters 2 had, even though it didn't hold the same weight, like, and I know that you're trying to be different, it's like you need the montage of them running amok.
Yeah.
And they did do that. They even threw in like a reference to one of the toys from the real Ghostbusters that everybody fucking like blew their load over. It's like, I don't care about that. It's like, just show me a little bit more. Show me more. I love the zombie ghost miner, but again, it's less so world building and more so, there was a zombie cab driver in the original, so we gotta have a zombie ghost miner.
Yeah, that's all you see is a zombie ghost miner and then the cool ass creepy eyeball ghost thing.
And that's
like
about it. I would have loved a full-on, I believe it's magic-esque montage. And you know what song desperately needs to be in a Ghostbusters movie? Call Me Corny. Like, they had this generic pop song playing during the end credits because it involves the word ghost. It's like, bro, we need a montage of shit happening and ghost song by the Doors going off while Ghostbusters.
You're talking about that generic pop song at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and because she says haunted house in that thing.
Exactly. I would have rather had like the whole thing with that Doors song. I always wish was in a fucking Ghostbusters project because it has kind of that funk, that but it's also got that ethereal bro, man, the Doors are too good.
Yeah, hell yeah. So that happens, and I'm guessing this is when the kids suit up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. This would be the perfect time where it's like extend that montage a little bit, show them gearing up, have them go out with the Ecto-1 while Ray Manzarek is going crazy. Why not?
Yeah. So, in my notes, alright, so they decide to suit up. Number one, these outfits are filthy. These jumpsuits are disgustingly filthy. Number two, why put them on at all? It's not like...
Yeah, there's really... They have no connection to it. They acknowledge that, hey, we're related to these guys who saved the world in the 80s. But again, Gary Gruberson didn't even call them the Ghostbusters. Like, these four random physicists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, they have no emotional... Phoebe would be the... you could still have the scene, maybe Phoebe puts it on and they look at her weird.
Yeah, and there's no reason to put them on because they aren't necessarily practical to what they're doing. There was no reason to put these uniforms on except for putting the kids in Ghostbuster uniforms. And then these are 12 and 15-year-old children, and these, other than having to roll the sleeves up, these outfits fit pretty damn well on 12-year-old kids.
Yeah, it's not hanging off them at all. The sleeves are perfect.
Yeah, they aren't all that baggy. It's unnecessary. It's only there to get people dressed in the damn Ghostbuster uniform.
Another thing too is that aside from Phoebe, you never really get the impression it's like they are not the new team. You know what I mean? This is a one-off thing.
Yeah.
So much so that they even need the new team to materialize out of nowhere. I don't know how they even got there.
Yeah.
They show up in the suits. This is where it kind of feels like an SNL sketch where it's like now we need, but it also kind of, I know Phoebe comes back in the end to save the day, but it defeats the purpose of the rest of them gearing up in the suits, like you said, because it's like they're not the team, you know? And you know they're going to come back. That's another thing I wrote is you know they're not going to leave it on the one-off Dan Aykroyd phone scene. Like the fact that now he's in the movie, you know he's coming back.
Yeah.
So,
especially when the last thing he hears is, I'm his granddaughter.
Arrested, you know? Like her being apprehended or like the phone call was cut off. So now he's even more like, hello, you're Egon's granddaughter? What?
Yeah, so they put on the uniforms for absolutely no reason. And they decide to go back to the jail and steal their shit. Now, number one, where are all the police now? Well, at this point, also, like, the whole town's cracking up. Fucking, roads are tearing up and shit. But where's all the police in this building?
This is the one guy.
Just for them to walk in, and the kid gets the, they're like, oh no, this is a certain type of lock, da-da-da-da-da, I can't open it. And so, little podcast kid reaches his hand in there and opens up the trap, which I actually thought was a decent setup and delivery. Alright, so it's the Muncher ghost and he eats metal, and he's in the trap. The trap is behind the bars. And so they open the trap so the ghost can chew through the metal so they can get in and get the shit. So I thought that was fairly well thought out.
That'd be great.
And then it gives you your new Slimer again to go and do some shit. So then they not only steal the Ecto-1 out of the lockup, they also steal a fucking police car for absolutely no reason. Because everybody...
They want you to forget about it because you hear the Ecto-1's classic siren.
Yeah, because everybody can fit in the Ecto-1. The only one that's...
They wanted to do a crime.
Who is it that steals the car? Is it the lucky girl?
Possibly, so maybe it's not even like in her mind stealing at all, even though it totally is.
Yeah, it's like there was no reason to steal a police car, and then you never see it again.
Had to have been a deleted scene, because even the after credits includes deleted scenes from the original Ghostbusters I had no idea about.
Yeah. Which I thought was a little odd. I thought that was a little wonky to throw that in there like that. Just to set up a scene.
I thought I was looking at CG at first, because I was like, what? This is the first time I've actually watched that end-end credit sequence, but we'll get to that.
And so, when I do like, they run out, they drive through, and I believe this is when they do a turn, I believe, and then I noticed a big old poster on the side of a building that was a poster advertising the Stay Puft marshmallows. Now,
which, throwback, because there was one in the original, in the city, there was like a matte painting where they had the Stay Puft logo on.
Exactly.
Like, pre-painted.
So, to me, that would have been a better callback to the marshmallow as opposed to cutesy little marshmallows running amok.
Oh, yeah, no, if you were really going to go with the Baskin-Robbins product placement, you might as well have the ice cream come to life.
Yeah. And so, then they do the turn, they cut, and that's when you see the diner, the P is out, and it says Sinners, and they all get to the mountain, and they get out there, they're ready to shoot Actually, they get there and Gozer is there with the two dogs, and I don't know what really happens here. On the way, the marshmallows start fucking with the podcast kid.
This mountain sequence there is just so we could unpossess the mom, because then they get her in the car and they head back to the house, and she's explaining everything that's going on. They're like, we already know, we're trying to save the world.
Yeah.
It's all just like the final setup for the big scene.
Yeah, because they get to the mountain and they unpossess the mom, and they get her, and they get back.
Oh yeah, he distracts Gozer. Is this at the mountain? Yeah, at the mountain she distracts Gozer with her jokes.
Yeah, the stupid jokes. That was just... I was just like, okay, oh, she's telling another one. Okay, she's telling another one.
The placement in the scene is awkward, but I did actually like the joke, you got a drink named Steve? It's like in something else, maybe.
That was kind of funny. But, yeah, it was like, oh, she's telling another one? Oh, God, here's another one. But, yeah, so they get back to the house, and that's when they all realize, oh, wow, it's a giant trap. The house is a giant trap. We're going to dig through the dirt, find the cord, and...
it's basically paying off the opening of the movie, because you're wondering, like, what was... you assume it's a trap of some sort, but Egon steps on it, it fucking craps out, and those silos, like, sparks start flying out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is now that paid off, where they realize, oh, that's what that was.
And yeah, so Gozer and crew show up, and she's shooting them.
On Egon's crib.
Do what?
Gozer and her boys rolling up on Egon's crib.
Yeah. And so I guess what happens here, she shoots the proton pack at Gozer or some shit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a conflict, and it seems like this is when Gary turns back into the Zool dog. Like, they almost have the upper hand, and then she gets it right back.
Then they turn Lucky into a Zool dog.
Oh, it was Lucky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think Paul Rudd ever not turned into... I don't think he ever changed back. I think they just replaced Mom Zool Dog with Lucky Zool Dog. A dog named Lucky. How about that?
Well, then it's even more fucked up then, because what they intend to have her do with fucking Gary Gruber.
Oh my God.
Folks don't give a fuck.
So, yeah, so, everything's looking dire. The podcast can't get rid of these damn marshmallows. Finn Wolfhard wants to use a proton pack, but it ain't working. And then, boom, real Ghostbusters show up.
Gozer's coming up to the mom. Oh no, they're all going to be eaten. And then, this is when the SNL sketch starts.
Ghostbusters show up. And I'm not going to lie, this was a great little scene. I thought they fit back into the characters together really well. The quips worked. I thought Bill Murray stole the show pretty well. He felt like Venkman again. He
slipped back into Venkman pretty well, and I say that he has some of the better humorous lines of the scene. And also, like, Ernie Hudson always looks good and always looks like he's having a good time. He is like the Mark Hamill of the Ghostbusters fan base, where it's like he never really left. He's always been interacting with the Ghostbusters fans, so
yeah,
always good to see him back.
Yeah.
But they fight him. They fight Gozer off for a little bit. She uncrosses the streams.
Yeah. See, they straight up What I like too is she's like, "Are you a god?" And they're like, "Oh, we remember this." Like, yeah, we're all gods. We're all gods.
Yup.
And but I like that the first thing they go for is crossing the streams.
I love the line where he's like, "On 3, go on 2,
yeah.
1, 2."
Yeah, that was good. So that felt like classic Ghostbusters dialogue. That was great. I liked that a lot. And I like that they go straight for crossing the streams because they remember. They were here before. They did this. But I do like the fact that it's not strong enough because guess what? There's not 4 of them. It's just 3 of them. And
Yeah.
Gozer's just like tearing that shit apart. And I believe this is when the girl starts again. Phoebe starts again, and you get that.
One thing I wanted to mention, though, is that even though this isn't the worst way they could have brought the original Ghostbusters back, it does kind of remind you why Ghostbusters 3 preferably should have happened in the 90s, when these guys were old enough for it to still be funny, but old enough to still be able to do a little bit more action, because they are just kind of standing in one spot, shaking, and then they get flung back into the car, which you know are stunt doubles. And Peter actually has a great little monologue there where he's trying to distract Gozer. We could have been the greatest power couple, but no, you always had to vanquish or conquer.
Yeah.
Always had to name something.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. Like I said, that's classic ass Ghostbuster shit right there.
It really is. So that's the reason why I can't be too cynical about it, is that, yeah, preferably would have rather had it be in the 90s where they could be a little bit more agile. But hey, they were never really that agile to begin with. So
yeah, because I mean, you know, it also makes sense because like you said, they were never agile anyway. They were just regular fucking Joes.
Yeah.
That decided to get into doing this shit to begin with. They weren't. None of them were fit. None of them go to the gym.
I feel like though they should have set up at least Winston and Peter with their own scenes, or do you feel like that could have just added more filler?
That probably would have padded the movie out too much because they already give us a Winston scene as an end credit sequence. I thought it worked.
Dan Aykroyd fills us in on what they were doing anyway.
Yeah, I think it worked with just Dan Aykroyd as a little tease, and then everyone shows up at the end. I thought that worked a lot better, because it's like you're waiting for it now. You see Dan, but now you're waiting for everybody. If everybody had their own single scene, I think it would have ruined the reveal of all of them together.
True, and it probably would have felt more like the 2016, where it's like, here's the obligatory Ernie Hudson cameo.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
One thing, like, Phoebe joins the mix, like, she shoots past Gozer's head, and this is where the big Egon reveal is.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, we kind of saw it coming. I knew that Egon was going to show up physically in some form, but I personally would have, because I just have my own feelings about bringing dead actors back with CG. I still find it kind of unnerving. I know it's something I'm going to have to get used to as the times change, because it's going to happen a whole lot more. But me personally, I would have preferred they kept it to that nice shot of the hand coming in, and that's all you see.
I'm not going to lie. I think this is probably one of the better of bringing an actor back with CG, because he's a ghost and he's there and everybody gets to see him one final time. He gets to help the team one final time. It felt more like a tribute as opposed to like on, what was it? Which Star Wars brought Peter Cushing back for a...
The Rogue One spin-off.
Exactly. So it's like, that felt cheap. That was like, yeah, why are y'all doing this? It made more sense for me to bring him back as a... because he's a ghost already. And this was just...
And the family did approve of it, but like I said, it's a whole can of worms that we're still trying to figure out, like, the morality of it. You know
it's like when we had the Tupac hologram, everybody was flipping out about 10 years ago.
Yeah, now we have Dio holograms, now we have holograms galore.
Yeah, but I'll say this is probably the first time where I was like, I'll allow this.
It's not a bad Harold Ramis CG rendering.
I'll say though, CG dead Harold Ramis looks a lot better than alive before death Harold Ramis was looking.
That's for sure. They shaved off a couple of pounds from him, not to be mean.
Yeah.
They definitely, this is Egon, this isn't Harold, you know?
Yeah, boom, there you go. I'll allow it for Egon.
But he doesn't talk.
Yeah, he doesn't talk, and he just smiles and stares. Doesn't even make a noise, which that's fine too. I mean, I don't need dead ghost Egon like apologizing to the family. I'm cool with the silent, I'm sorry, and I'm here.
Yeah, just the fact that he's there. And then also, this is just being nitpicky. You know, everyone's like crying in their tissues with Ghost Egon, but then the mom comes over and hugs him, wouldn't she be slimed?
Yeah, she should have some ectoplasm on her.
Or maybe he has a secret ghost power where he's like, I could make myself tangible, you know?
Yeah. But so yeah, everybody joins together. He joins the team one last time, and I do like that shot when he joins them, and everybody.
The reaction on their faces is hilarious and does kind of bring back that classic Ghostbusters vibe, where it's like they know what they're dealing with. What they're dealing with is weird, but even they still can't believe it.
Yeah, I like that they all kind of do a double take, like, oh shit, damn, Egon's ghost is helping us.
We got help from the other side.
Yeah.
Friends in high places.
And so, boom, they set the trap. Day is saved, thanks to the Ghostbusters.
We're the best. We're the beautiful. And the best joke in the movie, in my opinion, comes at like the very end point where we finally find out who Podcast's one subscriber is.
Yeah.
It's Ray.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. Then he throws in the whole, because Podcast earlier had said, he gave her a whole USB of his entire series, and he says, it really found its voice on the 46 episodes. And then you get a call back with Ray saying, yeah, it really found its voice on the 46 episodes. I like that too.
I love that running line, and it really made me start thinking about Fresh from the Basement, where it's like, I wonder what episode we found our voice at.
Oh yeah, but yeah, like I thought that was good. But then, like,
yep, honestly,
this movie does the thing. All right, so they all bust out of the Zool dog shit, and then you get this like awkward shit where like Paul Rudd's like, yeah, so you know we kind of. She's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, we kind of did it. Yeah, da. Like womp womp womp.
we're still gonna be together, so it's all okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Now we'll be able to have sex and both be consensual. It can actually be consensual.
Yeah, to be fair, none of them were consenting in that situation.
Yeah, that like opens up a straight can of worms. But so this movie does a thing where, you know, should this movie have had an epilogue? Because it just kind of ends here.
Well, because you're still kind of riding high on the fact that Harold Ramis made up with his daughter, and then it kind of does the E.T. ending where it floats up into the sky, and then it says, for Harold. So there really isn't really much left to say, because in a normal Ghostbusters movie, like, hey, it ended on the top of the tower. Like, sure, we could have a end credit sequence, but there's really no crowd of adoring fans, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and see, like, this is a thing this movie does, is it ends, and the threat was supposed to be global, but it just kind of hurt a little bit of this small town. But another thing is, nobody in this town was really terrorized by any of this shit. For all they know, all the roads cracking up is because of the recent earthquakes they have been getting. So,
well, yeah, that's what I was going on about, not just for my love of the Doors, but like why that montage should have been a little bit more extended and shown people running, like, why it should have been an army of ghost miners.
Yeah, 2 people saw a ghost, you know? And so this whole ending is really just there for the kids and the Ghostbusters. Just for the main characters. Like, nobody is really saved. There was no real threat to anything except for
the characters.
Yeah. So it just kind of ends like, I mean, it's just on a small scale. It's the whole movie's on a small scale with a decent budget.
We finally get the Ray Parker Jr. in the end credits, which at this point it's like, does the Ghostbusters theme at the end even feel like necessary? Like, it feels weird, doesn't it?
It felt weird, but it felt right. Because I was like, I'm actually glad they didn't play the song during the movie at all. So to me, it worked better as a in credits deal. But one thing I forgot to mention is I did like all the all the callbacks to the old commercial that they did in the old movie. It's like everybody's watching it on YouTube and shit.
Yeah, because that shit definitely would have been re-uploaded.
But
But aside from that, the movie's over, and then we get another kind of SNL sketch where they're doing the fucking ESP. Tell me what's on the back of the card.
yes, we finally get Sigourney Weaver showing up, and what's funny is during the credits, right before the end credit scene, you get Sigourney Weaver's name flashed up there, and it's like,
yeah, that's the thing. So I'm like, oh well, I know I'm about to see her.
it's like I'm either about to see her or I fucking missed her.
And why do they gotta ruin one of my favorite scenes from Ghostbusters? Like, I get that Venkman's a dick and he was creepy, but it's like, come on, the ESP thing, like, don't try to make me feel bad about that.
Yeah, and she's shocking him and stuff. That was really there just because it's like, oh, he's getting what he deserves 40 years later.
And it's like, we already knew, the whole joke is that he's a dick. And then also, going by our theory, it's like, why is Dana still talking to Peter?
Yeah, so I guess, like, are they married? What's going on here?
Are they married, or maybe did they finally just hit up a friendship where it's like, all right, we have boundaries, but we're still cool with each other? Like, yeah, it's just there to be like, haha, fuck Peter.
Yeah.
Which I agree, fuck Peter, but don't fuck him like that.
And then the final end credit scene, it's a little awkward because it rips a little plot hole in there, and they had to throw in a deleted scene of Janine giving Egon some random ass coin, just for her to be like,
oh, a one-off joke. Like, if I'm assuming that this is a deleted scene, my whole takeaway from that is that the one-off joke and why they cut it out of the movie was like, yeah, it's a little funny, but not that funny. Is she gives him the coin, and he goes, oh, I don't want to take it from you. And she goes, oh, I got another one like it just at home.
Yeah, and then it cuts to her talking to Winston, and she's got the coin. And so I'm wondering, is this coin going to have something to do in the next movie? And Winston's talking about all the great shit that they've done. And what I do like, though, is back in our theory of her loving Egon, is that when she talks about Egon, even in the scene when she first shows up at the house, there is, you can tell she still cares about him, still cared about him. Like, there's something we don't know.
Oh, obviously. She still kept in touch with him even when he was in the house, like, as best touch as she could.
Like, maybe they did eventually get together. Maybe they are hinting that she could be a girl's mom. Maybe she doesn't know her mom.
Why the secrecy?
Yeah. Then...
And it could have been, this is how you know that the Dan Aykroyd Starbucks line was an improv, because you could have easily thrown it away with a throwaway line that's like, Winston's got a big old business now, and he's like, I've been doing it for my kids, but I want to do something for me. I want to be a role model. He could have done a funny line where it's like, you have no idea how much it cost me to buy out that fucking Starbucks location alone. Just the one location.
Yeah, exactly. But even so, because, alright, he sees the Ecto-1 before the end of the movie, and he says, I'm going to take you home, I'm going to fix you up, da-da-da-da. And,
that shot before the Ghostbusters, like, I thought it was an out-of-place shot. Like, they should have cut to it before the Janine scene, instead of the coin thing. But the final shot of the movie is the Ecto-1 going over the bridge into New York. But it's just kind of like this thrown-in shot.
Yeah, I forgot about that, the whole New York scene. But yeah, so then
it's a shot, like the camera pans down and it's floating back into New York. And I get it, it's supposed to be like your feel-good, oh, the boys are back in town. But, they're not really. It's more like Winston and whoever, now that's the sequel. Who are we going to hire? Who are you going to hire? But it's probably going to be Phoebe because, she's probably grown a little bit since the filming of this movie, so more than likely they'll probably write it where she's at college age.
Yeah, they might be, Ghostbusters in training in the next one, but so they cut to him and he's rolling the Ecto-1 into the garage of the firehouse, and it just ruins the whole it's a Starbucks now. It's like, all right, if it was a Starbucks, why is it run down? Let's say he did buy the place. Why is it run the fuck down in there?
Exactly. You should at least have like abandoned coffee equipment, and him going like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to change this back to what it was," or maybe even an updated. Which I assume we're gonna get an updated firehouse anyway. I don't assume it's gonna look like exactly the way it did, in the upcoming movie. I'm surprised we're even getting an Afterlife 2.
Yeah, that I was not expecting. The first I heard about it was a couple weeks ago when it was like...
And they were already filming it, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago it's like pictures have leaked of Paul Rudd, in the new Ghostbusters movie, and Winston showing up. I'm like, oh, I'll be damned.
So maybe Gary will finally be a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, I'm assuming. But another question is, all right, the Ghostbusters show up at the farm. I guess they...
How long did it take him to round up everybody? I mean, like, I don't know.
Now, another question. Is everyone still in New York? How far...
He's working for SUNY something, so I believe, yeah, that's New York.
So how far is Oklahoma from New York?
Well, still you gotta stretch your disbelief. Like, and again, we don't know where Winston is, but yeah, we have confirmed that Peter is still New York based.
And assuming they knew where this farmhouse was, they got there without a problem. But if they knew he was at the farmhouse and that he had all their shit, why didn't they ever go before?
Right.
So that's another question. How did they know how to get to this farmhouse?
Phoebe didn't give them the address.
But he did. But Ray did mention Oklahoma. Ray did mention that he went to Oklahoma. So Ray obviously knows where Egon went.
Yeah.
But I still thought it was a little odd.
Odd would be the right word for, I think, just how I felt about this whole movie. But I will say, now that we're at the end of it, especially if we're going to be doing ratings, like if I gave...
But hold on, before you say that, there's something I want to say. And back on the Firehouse, I think this movie's cameo for the Firehouse, sadly, is worse than the cameo for the Firehouse in Ghostbusters 2016.
Yeah, and it kind of does what both of them did, where it's like pointless Sigourney Weaver cameo, and,
Because, the Firehouse scene in 2016, I thought was actually a pretty funny scene, because there's like, oh, we want this place. Then they see how much rent's gonna be, and it's like, oh, no, screw that. That little Firehouse scene worked a little...
It's at least a gag.
Yeah. This one just kind of ruined a joke.
Yeah.
An established joke an hour and a half ago.
Which wasn't even that funny to begin with.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, we're still doing Starbucks jokes?
Yeah.
But, yeah, so go back to what you were saying.
Like, if I remember rating the 2016 one a 4, so if the 2016 is a 3 or a 4, this is a still shaky, but more solid 5 or 6.
Ah.
Out of 10,
Yeah. So for me, I don't remember what I rated 2016, but this one for me, I enjoyed this one a lot. I thought it was much better than it had any right to be. But thing is just like with Force Awakens, all this needed to do was the difference between this and Force Awakens. Okay. All the Force Awakens needed to do was be better than the prequels. And it was better than the prequels. And that's all it did. It didn't go above and beyond being better than the prequels. Now for this, all it had to do was be better than 2016. But I do believe this went above and beyond just being better than 2016. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like this a little more than Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, that's where I would have to reevaluate Ghostbusters 2, because I have a real soft spot for that one. I don't think it's there yet, but I didn't hate this one I think people are quick to react where, again, I had my nitpicks, I had my thoughts about it, but if this is the closest thing to a Ghostbusters 3 we are getting, I will take it. You know, if this is on TV, I won't change the channel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie just fine. I just had some suggestions on how to make it tighter.
Yeah. Your voice got all weird.
Oh, today it must be Skype.
Yeah.
What does it sound like?
Weird, you're back now.
Oh, okay.
It just sounded more distorted.
Yeah, that's definitely the technology.
Yeah. But, yeah, like, because
Robo Frank.
I like part 2 fine, but I think I like this movie about as much as I like the first one. I like the first one a little more, but I think this is, to me, this worked a little better as a sequel than the second one.
Yeah, if we're talking quality-wise, this one definitely trumps 2. If we're talking, like, personal enjoyment, that's where I would have to reevaluate.
Yeah, because I think the big thing with me on 2 is, like, it starts off and it's like everybody's broke up just so everybody can get back together. And
yeah,
that's
it's the typical sequel model.
Yeah, and it gets a little annoying. And that was back when that wasn't such a overused trope. But by the time I saw it when I was a kid, it was an overused trope.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah,
I think that's a fair take.
Yeah, it was definitely a pretty enjoyable movie that had a lot more heart in it. It did a lot more than it needed to do. Because like I said, it just needed to be better than 2016, and it did a lot more than just be better than Ghostbusters 2016. So I don't know. I'd rate it maybe a 7. I don't know. As it's a little highly or above average. But I think some of the weird shit that just doesn't make sense kind of knocks it down for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I would totally get that. You're just one peg above me.
Yeah, it's like a 7's fine because they did a lot with it that was fun. But next to stupid shit like why is he called podcast?
Yeah, go back to that.
why are they setting up Egon to be? If you're trying to really pay tribute to Harold Ramis, why are you making his character seem to be like such a deadbeat to his family and shit? So like, there's some things that is like, oh, but I think overall, even going back to just repeating the first movie in the third act. Kind of knocks it down some, but I get why they did it, so I'm not hating on it. But yeah, definite 7. Worth checking out. We can all wash our hands of Girl Busters and move on.
We can wash our hands of Ghostbusters now as well, because until Afterlife 2, like we've covered it. We've covered it all.
Yeah. So next, we're gonna do Bill and Ted Face the Music.
We're gonna face the music in the basement.
Yeah.
Was essentially looking forward to it because I've only seen it once. I remember liking it. It's kind of similar to this one, where it's like, again, I didn't really think anything of it. I probably liked that more than this, but
yeah,
hey, we'll have to get to it.
Another legacy sequel, and another sequel they had been trying to make for ages and just could never get it done. And it finally came out, and it's another one that, like this, like I said when we did our first Bill and Ted Retro, how the sequel was so wildly different than the first one, but still made it work. The third Bill and Ted was still pretty wildly different, and it worked. I liked that there was a lot of things in the third Bill and Ted that I was like, you know what? This is actually God damn it, cat! Come on. They are they're giving a lot more heart and taking a lot more care of it.
While still keeping to the formula that I mentioned, that it's like we do something the original, we go somewhere different, and now we're back to the original. It's like Bill and Ted die in the second one, and now we're back to the time-traveling phone booth, but they still do something interesting enough with it.
Yeah. And so,
but on that note, Basement Dwellers, this has been Afterlife, and I want to thank everybody who commented. I really appreciate the feedback and sharing your thoughts on the show. It's one of my favorite segments. So keep on doing that.
Yeah, keep on. If you want to join the fun, we post these questions in the Fresh from the Facebook group and in the Speaker Brains group. So just look at those on the Facebook groups. And
you guys can already listen to Cut to the Chase. We like to throw in when we're doing a podcast over there as well.
Yeah, hit up the Cut to the Chase podcast.
And the Dark Discussions page. So those are...
Yeah, because there is no more horophilia anymore. Right now, we're all part of darkdiscussions.com. And so, no more horophilia, sadly. Which to me, I really liked that name a little better.
Yeah, the end of an era.
Yeah, the end of an era, man.
But not gone. It's definitely not gone and forgotten.
Yeah, because most of those people are still doing podcasts. I think the one still going hard is Lacey Lou and Dan Chase.
Yeah, dude.
Everyone else has kind of moved on, or they sporadically do podcasts. But yeah, hit it up, and we'll see you guys when we do the Bill and Ted episode.
Make sure to stay tuned. I'll catch you guys later.
Later.